All right.
Dude, you ready?
I'm so ready, man.
Madison. Let's go. Let's roll.
All right, I'm ready. Let's get it.
So, dude, welcome. Welcome to the show, dude.
It's an honor to be here, really, I'll tell you. And just so the viewing audience knows, there are actually a lot of steps to get up here. And Bam made sure there wasn't a problem.
15
steps. He made it feel like it was 2.
I didn't tell you until we got here.
Yeah, he did keep that one hidden. See, we have a mutual friend named Justin. And, we were on a fishing trip. Everything was going great. And then he's like, oh, we're going, we started off, we were in this, some normal hotel, elevators, everything's great. And he's like, yeah, we're going to the next spot, but it's right on the beach. You're going to love it. It's like, great. So we drive out there, and then I just get out of the car and open the door, and it is just the thickest, whitest, softest sand I've ever seen for hundreds of yards.
Yep.
And then he was like, oh, I figured this would be easier for you. And then, then it was multiple staircases to get inside the house. And I feel like it's kind of what you did here. And so I just want to say, thanks for making me get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
great. That was great.
You know what? We got to bond immediately if we're gonna have this
trauma
conversation.
bonding, just right away.
I'm all for trauma bonding. Once you're trauma bonded, you're in for life.
For life at this
That
point.
is it. See, there we go.
We should get branded together.
Let's go.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
one.
Well, dude, welcome to the show. I do something a little different here. I do like to help out the veteran and law enforcement community. So with this platform and as it grows, I don't have sponsors yet, but what I do is I offer anybody, small businesses that are veteran, military, law enforcement, first responder owned, to be able to send us things to be able to give to guests as a thank you for coming on. And if somebody sees it and wants to support them, it's just a way for me to be able to give back to the community. So got a couple awesome companies today. I got a really good buddy of mine, Sea State Coffee.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Recon Marine. He actually was just brewing this last night and ran it over for you. Want to make sure you get a mug.
No way.
Yeah, and I got some cold brews for you to send home, because I know if you're hanging out with the Dejan boys, you're getting zero sleep. So
honestly, I'm starting to get them just I'm making them tired. We're
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that
I
is
run
impressive.
On nothing but fuel.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to be at the Vault tonight, which is in Eagle. So we're having a Trump party. This guy with the Platoon cigars. So I'll make sure he's sending home with those. The War Machine. He was actually a combat Marine. Got out, became a cop in Chicago. Got shot in the line of duty. And, so this guy is...
You're kidding me.
No, I'm going to get him on the show, and...
It just goes to show that, the modern American massive city is more dangerous than a combat zone.
And then this one, this is a new guy. I know you are a Christian man, and so this is a cop. It's God-Fearing Lifting Club.
No
I
way.
wanted to give you a shirt from him. He's an active duty cop out of California. He just started this company. It's actually, I'm wearing one of his shirts right now.
Oh, that's sweet.
So he wanted me to be able to give an awesome guest a couple of gifts. And
Man.
So I figured you'd
David
be in.
versus Goliath. Oh, you got a picture of young David holding up the Philistine giant's head. That's sick.
Right?
That's sick. Whoever this guy is, please tell him I said thank you. This is awesome.
So God-Fearing Lifting Club, man, he's an active duty cop out of SoCal. His mission is to grow this company so he can actually open up gyms and be able to give veterans a place to come, give them Bibles, they can learn, come together as a group. So, yeah, man, I throw these invites out for companies to be like, hey, if I can help in any way. And then these guys reach right out, and they're like, man, if you could help me. And so I wear their gear, give them the guests, and be able to get them a plug. And if somebody buys a shirt and supports.
I appreciate it, brother. This is awesome.
I just feel like if more podcasts had platforms and they were doing things like this to give back to the community, it helps everybody. It
would be a real community.
So that's where I'll never stop doing it, no matter how big this podcast ever gets. I'll always help the community and give back. So that's kind of our way. And then obviously my daughters, they have the Sour Bee. And so, yeah.
Just so you guys see, this is a sourdough loaf made with Nutella. So it makes you kind of feel like you're cheating, but you're still eating good food. Great for your gut health.
Yep.
Incredible. So to your daughters, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, man, also, we already talked about how your wife's way out of your league. Your daughters are awesome.
Yes,
I mean, you did a great job on them.
Thank you.
They're phenomenal humans.
Thank you.
You should be proud.
Thank you. Dude, that means a lot. So, I mean, especially just meeting them. I mean, you're a homeschool kid, so you get it.
Homeschool all the way through. I knew literally the second I saw them. You didn't have to tell me they were homeschooled. I knew right off the bat.
Because they could actually have a conversation with you and look in the eyes.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and I'll tell you, in D.C., I think probably 75 or 80% of my staff is homeschooled.
Really?
Yeah. Just because I have a very it's so easy to know what their priorities are, just to know kind of where they're from, and also to understand, because obviously so many families are different even within the homeschool world, but you understand where their mindset is. It's like, okay, I can give you a problem, I don't need to micromanage you. Whereas with so many other people who go through traditional education, and especially if they go through something higher than college, if there are not, guide rails and sidebars on their life, they get so lost so easy, and you have to always come in and be like, hey, you do this, got to do this. I like the self motivators. People are going to handle it, and just
It's one of the best benefits to homeschooling that we've learned over the last 5 years is figuring it out.
right.
What's the solution? Figure it out. If you can't come up with a solution, come to us. We're going to help you.
Yep. And then my biggest thing is just, I need you to, if you come to me with a problem, it needs to be a narrowly defined problem.
Yep.
And almost always, if you can narrowly define the problem, the solution just is automatically already there.
And she's a prime example. She's 16 years old. When we brought the podcast in-house, she went and sat in the studio, I think, once or twice. We got everything set up here, and I'm like, hey, learn it. Figure it out.
Producer's killing it.
And this is your 8th episode here at the house. So, yeah, 8th episode.
That's awesome.
And the way the growth that we have, the way it looks, the sound, the video, it's all her. And she sits up here, YouTubing, whatever she has. And then she's a stubborn son of a gun. She's a lot like me. So there'll be times where I'm like, Christy, we just can't figure it out. We got to get mom, because her and I, mom figures out everything, But she'll come up and she'll have these problems like, Dad, I don't know why I didn't do this. And I'm like, and then 30 minutes, I got it. Okay, I got it. And we're like, cool, like that. And it's that putting children under stress at a younger age. And I don't know how to judge it, but there's times, especially when they were competing competitively, we might put a lot of stress on them, and we were those parents for sure. But it's preparing them for the real world.
100%.
And then she's seeing her friends, and they're coming home and they're crying in the shower because they had a math test that day, and they have complete meltdowns. And they're talking to her, and she's like, you're crying over this?
Can't relate at all.
And she's like, I got to work for my dad. And I tell her, I'm like, if you can learn to work for me,
yes,
I am going to be the hardest boss you will ever work. You're going to have dickhead bosses, just complete jerks of
but the fact
people
that
you work
father.
for. But when I have deliverables and standards, and I want them done at this time, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is how things are going to be run, especially if we want to take this thing serious. And so she's had to learn with that, and there's no budging. I'm not like, oh, okay, kid, yeah, no problem. Like, hey, I want to go to youth group. Is everything done? So now she knows, okay, like as soon as your episode's done, boom, she'll have it all edited, ready to go, uploaded, in standby.
I'll tell you,
clipped.
So few podcasts are capable of delivering that. Like they'll be, oh yeah, we'll get you clips and we'll get you posting. Then their people are just they're mentally slow, and so
really,
yeah,
oh man, we'll get you whatever you want.
Because they weren't homeschooled. I'm telling you, so
it's a homeschool thing. Well, dude, speaking of homeschool, let's just start. Where the hell are you from? And let's just start right at the beginning and just jump into it. I don't know how much time you got. Well, I'm driving, so you have all the time in the world.
Exactly, and we're up a massive staircase, so I legitimately can't get away. And
you're mine.
Yeah, I did. And there's a lot of people that I'm very not afraid of most people, just because I feel decently confident. But you're a big motherfucker. You're a big guy.
This is me at my smallest too.
Oh wow!
I used to be an absolute gorilla, but I was just too heavy, and so.
Jeez, man, I believe that.
290. I was 290 in the Marine Corps.
That's
absolute, just blob of a human being.
What's it feel like being victim weight now? Like, are you afraid of the wind? Does it make you nervous?
Yeah, that 240, 240, 250. I'm like, oh, God, go outside and feel average again.
Oh.
No. Yeah, so, well, dude, what the hell, man? I mean, thank you you're in Idaho. This, honestly, is huge for us because we're such a new, small, just starting podcast. I mean, I think it'll be episode 42 or whatever,
man.
We're right there, and we just finished the room. I mean, we had some really good start out of the gate, and then when we moved it here, thank you, dude. It's been a lot, and so it's an honor to have somebody like you to be here and like this early. I feel like in the game.
Yeah.
I honestly thought the very first congressman, politician would be Eli, because he's
Eli Crane?
He's a homie.
Love Eli.
We go back.
He's a good guy.
I bought one of his bottle breachers when he was just back from his last deployment as a Navy SEAL, carving him out in his garage. That's how long I've known Eli. That's how long I've been supporting Eli, and he's been supporting me. He was a mentor for my organization.
Oh man,
Eli and I. So
Eli Crane's a solid congressman. He's doing a good job, actually.
We were actually in Utah together, and him and I were we were out at an event, and we were leaving, going to town to grab some supplies. And he's like, hey, I got to tell you something. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I think I'm going to run for Congress. And I look at him, I'm like, you sure you want to do this? And he's like, I have to make a difference, man. I have to. And I was like, dude. And him and his wife they are such an incredible couple and strong in faith and everything that they're about and their family. And I was like, dude, I know you guys are tight, but they're going to run you through the ringer. And he's like, we're ready. He's like, I'm ready. He's like, but I have to make a difference. And so he was like, I don't tell anybody but I'm gonna give it a shot. And I was like, you got my support. You know, we dabbed it up and talked about it, and man,
now he's congressman.
He's doing it.
Dude,
he's
great.
crushing it too.
Yeah,
so
he's doing a great job.
yeah, he's the first one I thought would be on, and then obviously I hit him up.
I got you, Eli.
He did. He's all big and famous and doing Congress shit now, so he doesn't have time for us little people anymore.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. I guarantee he'll be up here. He'll be up here.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so North Carolina boy.
Yeah, so I'm from the mountains in North Carolina.
What part?
Hendersonville, but it's right outside of Asheville.
Okay.
Yeah, best place in the world to grow up. I mean,
Really?
Yeah, just great people. You know, Asheville is really weird. You know, just like when I was a kid, they would drop young teenagers off. You go and you see a bunch of hippies like in a drum circle smoking weed, and it was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But now, like especially during close to like 2020, that area, there was just so many needles on the ground, defecating on the ground.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of homeless people moved in. A lot of there's an Antifa headquarters there. Like it's just a bunch of weird really? Stuff. Yeah, there's some really weird stuff that goes on inside of Asheville. Okay. But yeah, so my district, it used to be all the mountains around Asheville, but then redistricting happened, and then I got to where I represented Asheville as well, and that was a trip.
So growing up, I mean, what were you into sports-wise, hunting, fishing? I mean, what'd you do as a kid from North Carolina?
Main sport was football.
Yeah,
so middle
what position?
Linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah, just like I like hitting people.
Yeah.
But then after that, love. Obviously, fall is the best time of the year. It's awesome. You got politics that are going on. We were very politically, we would follow politics very closely. And so that made it fun. Then you have football. Then you have dove season at the exact same time, and it's just nothing could be better.
Yeah.
That's just just everything you need in life. And then bonfire weather. So it was a great place to grow up. But I'll tell you, I really lucked out because I have probably the best family you could ever imagine to come from.
Yeah.
I mean,
parents still together?
Parents still together. Yep.
Good.
And then I got one older brother, 4.5 years older than me. But having my older brother was basically like having like a second dad. My brother's outrageously wise and just a super morally good guy. Mm-hmm. And then, but then also being 4 years apart, like it was where we were close enough we could compete and like have fun playing together. But we were never in competition, whether it was for friends, girls, football.
That's the perfect age.
Anything. Yeah.
Okay.
But then one of the most fun things is his football coach. When I was in my 8th grade, so in middle school. My brother was a senior, and it was last year of football, and so I remember I went and asked his coach. I was like, "Hey, is there a chance I can play for your football team?" He's like, "No, you're like way too young." And I was like, "I know, but it's my brother's last year." Blah. And so I got to play football with my brother his last year.
Really?
So that was super fun. I remember, we'd be in practice or in a game or whatever, and some older kid would just level me because I'm like 13 or 14 against like an 18-year-old.
Yep.
And then I'd be like, "Geez, that was brutal." And I'd get up and be like, "Okay, I'm like,
different world."
Yeah, I'm like ready to go." And then I would just see my brother just walk onto a position he's not even in, and then just destroy the guy. And the coach was like, "Well, that's just some senior discipline right there."
Yep.
And so, but yeah, getting to grow up with my brother and my family was the best thing in the world.
That's cool.
And so
man.
I had a charmed childhood. Really very strong believers of Christ. Like in my, it was never like, oh, hey, this is a religion. It was like it was a relationship.
Yep.
Became a Christian when I was 6.
Nice.
Yeah, and then so I remember
been in it ever since.
Oh, ever since, yeah. Obviously, it goes up and down.
For
you
sure,
know how it goes.
for sure.
But never been like, oh, I walked away from the faith. It's been. Obviously, I couldn't even walk away from the faith at this point because I can't walk. So, but yeah, so I had a phenomenal childhood. Everything was great. And then
And your dad served too, right?
Yeah, he was a Marine. Yep, my grandfather
How
was
was
a Marine.
that?
My
So, I mean, you
great-grandfather
talk
was a
about
Marine.
having a great father. I mean, was he your typical Marine, or was he like, hey, that was my time, and then now it's time to do the family thing? Because I feel like you get one or the other.
You know what? I think that my dad's upbringing was very much like, because his dad was a career guy. I think his upbringing was very much like he was in the Marines. His dad really expected him to treat him just like a master sergeant at home. But that was not my raising at all. There was definitely some Marine Corps discipline.
For
and
sure.
There was some
sure. Got the standards and guidelines.
Got the standards, and
he's but you're not getting knife handed every day.
Oh no, not every day. But you get knife handed every once in a while. I remember I blocked a slap from my mom one time. She was not slapping me. I was not abused anyway. But I remember, I blocked something from my mom. She was just being funny, and I just remember my dad just teleported into the room. He's like, "You can't take a hit from a woman," and I was like, "Whoa!" And I just said so. But it was great. And then I remember, I think when I was 16 years old was the first time I realized I was going to beat my dad wrestling. Yeah, and I had him, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to win. Like, I got this. I was about to get him in chokehold.
That's a pivotal moment for a father-son.
Yeah, but then that is when I realized that my father is not, Roger Cawthorn. My father's a Marine. And all of a sudden, all the rules that we had growing up of how we're supposed to fight, they all changed. And he was like, taught you how to fight with honor, and I'm going to teach you how to win. And then he was like, the Marine's coming out. And I just, we got knife handed a lot that day. That was a lot of fun. But,
I see, obviously, a girl dad, I don't have to worry about that. But I remember when, like, the time comes where, the young buck takes over. And, I don't know how that feels as a father, knowing I got a buddy and his son's just an absolute monster of a human being for a kid, like a young kid, and he's already taller than him. He's like, bro, this kid's gonna give me a run if he ever steps up. And my buddy's a giant human being, and so it's fun to watch like a son father dynamic, especially when they work together. So they're always he's starting to bow up and kind of
get
that confidence.
You get that bandy rooster coming out every once in a while. I remember, all of a sudden, Dad be like, "Whoa, dude, you're like 13.
We're down.
So you're not gonna take me.
Yeah,
you can try." But no, growing up was just a lot of fun. I remember, it's just a lot of wrestling, a lot of fighting in my house. Just like after every single meal, because my brother's got 4 daughters now, so our life, we came from the most testosterone filled. Everything's camouflaged and hunting and shooting and just my mother had absolutely zero tolerance for anything that was not masculine. Just like really? Just nothing. And then now I've got 4 nieces. My dad's got 4 granddaughters. My brother's got 4 daughters. Jeez. It's just everything's pink. We're all so patient and quiet now, and they
change you.
It's just a big change.
See, I knew my future, and I knew God's plan, and boys were not in it.
Yeah, well, you got the infantry course, right?
No, I wasn't infantry, but I was, amphibious assault vehicles, but,
Yep.
Bro, and even the wife, she'll tell you, she's like, Marines, all you are the same. And all my buddies, every one of them, girls.
All girls.
All girls. And she's like, yeah, y'all are a bunch of dirt bags running around. She's like, it's exactly. She's like, karma. She calls them out. Everything like, karma. She's like, I know all of you. And so, after number 2, I was like, we're good.
We're good. Yeah.
I love it. But everyone's like, try for a boy. And I'm like, I'll be that dad with like 7 daughters, just still trying, like hanging in there. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
I accepted my fate. Really.
But you're gonna have so much fun when they,
and
scaring the crap out of boys. It'll be such a great time. So
it is a great time, man. I really enjoy it. I think you're given what God thinks you can handle, and I really like when we found out number 2 was coming and it was a girl. I was devastated, because everyone's like, "Oh, dude, you're bam, you're having a boy, and Brett the whole time is like, "No, you're not. And then when we were in the ultrasound, they said she, and I was like, fuck. We weren't even like trying. It was not an accident, but we were playing with fire.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
you knew what time of month it was.
Yeah. And so, it wasn't being smart, but it happened. So it's like, okay, we're here.
I met her. She's great. Like,
yeah.
you
incredible. Yeah. And so, but once, and I was not about the pregnancy. I was kind of an asshole in a different place then. But as soon as she came out and grabbed my finger, owned me, and I was like, okay, like
there we go.
Yeah, we'll do it again. And so but it's been fun, so I love it.
Well, that's exciting, brother.
So after high school,
so my it was my senior year of high school. I was 18 years old. I was on spring break with my best friend and having a great time. We were 2 Christian young men, so as much fun as 2 Christians can have. Mm-hmm. On spring break we had, and down in Florida, and then we were driving home. I think it was Steak and Shake. We stopped at Steak and Shake. We ate, and then I called my mom, told her what time we'd probably be back, and so we were driving. And then I remember I tapped my buddy. I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna take a nap right quick. Wake me up, and I'll take over the next spot." He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then we're going, and then my buddy, who's a great guy,
friends to this day.
Friends to this day. Oh yeah.
Good. Trauma bonded.
Trauma bonded for sure. Yeah, but no, he for whatever reason thought while driving that it would be better as a group activity if he also took a nap. No. And so then next thing I know, I wake up a long time later in the hospital. So then our vehicle, we were going back, we weren't speeding, we were on Interstate 4. We're probably going, 70-ish. We veered off the road, we were in construction zone, and then front right corner, passenger side where I'm sitting, just headlong into a concrete barricade. And then I don't know if, the pedal was stuck or what happened at that point, but then the car just kept going forward, and so then, the concrete exposed the fuel line, and the sparks hit the fuel line, and so then, the car's ignited. I'm, just slumped over, spine destroyed, kidney's been ripped off, severe internal bleeding, both lungs ruptured. My buddy Brad was able to get out of the vehicle, and then, a bunch of people came back, got me out, but they're like, this guy's gone. And then they realize I'm still alive, so then I get picked up by a helicopter, fly me over to Phenomenal Hospital in Daytona. Which, if you're going to get in a car accident, pick Daytona. Obviously,
Okay.
they know how to handle a car accident.
Yeah.
And so, went to Halifax Hospital, and then they end up calling my family. And, obviously, I'm sure you as a parent can understand, worst call anybody could ever imagine. And it was like, hey, but obviously they're very strict on what you're allowed to say at that moment. And so, it has to be something confirmed. And so they're talking to my mom, and she answered the phone, and she was, they said, hey, your son's been involved in a car accident, being brought here. We just wanted to let you know. And then, my mom trying to rule out the worst case scenario. She said, well, you said he's been in a car accident, and obviously he gave you my number or something, but, why, he's not like dying or anything, is he? And she's like, well, we can confirm to you right now that, he has a broken ankle. Because that was, I guess, the only thing they had confirmed at that time.
And here you are fighting for your life.
Yeah, and then my mom was, I guess, probably appealed to this woman, like on a woman level, and was like, what's going on with my son? Like, why is he not calling me if he's got a broken ankle? And then there was a long pause, and this woman said, Mrs. Cawthorn, we're a trauma level 4 hospital. Like, we're the #1 trauma center in the state, and your son's being flown to us for a reason, is all I can tell you. And then, and then gave her a call back later. I'm already in surgery at this point. And then she said, Mrs. Cawthorn, you and your family need to come down here right now, and you should fly, because if you don't, you will not get to say goodbye to your son.
No.
Yeah. And
so they're preparing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna die. I mean, there is no reason I should be alive aside from God.
So
Almighty.
clearly you're on life support at this point, just to.
Oh, I'm in back-to-back 16-hour surgeries. They're trying to make me stop bleeding on the inside. My kidney's been ripped off. I've got a traumatic brain injury. My diaphragm's ruptured.
Did you have a seatbelt on or no?
Had a seatbelt on. I've seen probably 3 or 4 different recreations of the accident of what they think may have happened. One, did you have your feet on the dash? Maybe the airbag threw your legs over it, snapped your spine. One is, did the seatbelt, you just fly forward because you were late. Because obviously I was laying back in the seat, so you went through the top one. That maybe snapped your spine. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I had severe 3rd-degree burns all over my body. My kidney had been ripped off. My lungs were just popped. My diaphragm had ruptured. Traumatic brain injury. Pelvis was destroyed.
Good
T12 vertebrae
Lord,
destroyed. And then just being on fire for so long, not having oxygen to while all that was going on, just made it even worse. And then so I went to back, multiple digit hour surgeries. And then my family got down there, and
how long did it take them to get down there? What was the distance between?
So North Carolina, Daytona is about, I would say on a good day, like an 11-hour drive.
Oh, okay.
And I remember my brother was home because, again, just to talk about how great my brother is. My brother had literally taken a semester off of college to spend my last little bit of high school with me.
Okay.
Just to train me, make me awesome. I was wanting to play football and stuff, and so he was just really focused on me. And then, and so he came back from work. My mom is there, and then she says what happened, and. I think my brother broke something, and then they were like, we got to pack right now. And then I just remember they've told me this in the past that they, when they got there after, they got out of the hospital, they were checking hotel. This is days later. They said that when they opened their bags, this the most random stuff we threw in. There's a toothbrush, one sock, a lamp, just
When you said they were packing, literally as you were talking, going through my mind, I'm like, what would I even?
What do you grab? Yeah, and then my my family was getting in, and my brother was like, I'm driving. He got the car, and then so, just because of Georgia State Patrol and FHP are pretty strict. I'm not going to talk about how fast my family made it there, but they made it really fast.
Oh, so they drove.
Oh, they drove. Yeah, because there was a storm system, and so flights were delayed.
Oh my
And so,
God.
but I will say my brother's was one of the best drivers I've ever met, and so I don't think they would have. They didn't lose much time driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put in some work. But anyway, so they got there, and then. Biggest thing that happened, though, them calling my mom, and it's still kind of up for debate of who gave them my mother's phone number, because my lungs were deflated, my diaphragm was ripped, so I couldn't speak. So maybe I wrote it down or signed it to the woman. I knew sign language at the time, because Brad was incapacitated; he couldn't talk either. And so I don't know how she got my phone number. That's a mystery to this day. But I will say, I genuinely believe that saved my life, because then my mom called, pastor's wife but everybody else, and then I just had an army of people praying. And then every doctor I've talked to from that hospital was like, there's no reason you should be alive. I was one of the most injured people in all of Florida history to actually live.
Really?
Yeah. There's I don't remember what it is, but there's a trauma rating scale, and I was one of the highest to actually still be alive.
Yeah.
And then and then also after I got out of the ICU, which I was there for multiple months. Then went to Atlanta for rehab at the Shepherd Center, and then I was in the hospital probably close to 13 months. And then that was just brutal. And then I remember them, starting to explain, okay, well, this is what your life's going to look like now. And I was so solidly certain that I was going to, I was like, guys, you don't know me. Like, I know I might be really injured right now, but I'm going to be back walking in no time.
So you, in your mind, you're that.
Oh yeah, I
being paralyzed was not an
like,
option.
No, that's not an option. Not going to happen. I was like, give me a year, I'll be good to go. Then anniversary comes. I'm like, okay, I'm still not walking. Maybe the next year, then the second one comes, and that's I got into a pretty dark spot at that point.
That was one of my questions. What was it like? I mean, going from a young kid on top of the world to now it's sinking in that you're paralyzed and you're never walking again.
Man, not a phenomenal time. I mean, it was because I was 6'3", I was 225. I could run a sub 4 minute mile. I was running like a 4.6, 4.7 40. Deadlifting over 600 pounds. Was strong as could be, physically awesome, smart. Everything was great. But then and then I go to literally I can't control my body, and then my brain was still really foggy from the TBI. And then I couldn't even talk, which was kind of my main skill in life. Was like,
really?
as long as I can talk, I'm good to go. But my diaphragm was ruptured. I got a tracheotomy in, so I couldn't even speak. And so everything that I felt like I had ever earned in life was just ripped away from me. Mm-hmm. And then but it was just a really, really, really difficult time. But that's the one thing that I will say. So many people reach out to my family. It's like, man, you guys are such incredible people of faith. We can't believe how strong you are in this. And it's kind of when we started to realize that a lot of people who say they're Christians and stuff like that, they don't actually mean it.
That's when in those times.
Yeah, because that was just our normal life. Like nothing really changed for us. We were just like, we didn't start talking to God more or anything like that. It was like, oh, that's just how we rolled the entire life. And so because my parents, there's that verse about train your child up in the way they should go. My parents had done that. They had set our foundation on a rock. Yeah. And so, even though everything was ripped away from me, my entire life, everything I could possibly imagine, I lived somewhere else. I felt like I was somebody else. I couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything.
Still had faith.
I still had God, So that was all pretty solid. And then also, I got to say, my parents are the best parents in the world. My mom's one of the greatest people I've ever met on the planet. But my brother, just a picture of brotherly love. My brother slept on the floor of my hospital room until I got out of the hospital. So over a year.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember, they were when we moved to that one place. They're like, oh, well, you can't really sleep here. You just have a chair. And blah, blah. He came in with like a mattress, and they were like, oh, sir, you can't bring that in. He was like, okay, you want to stop me? And then he just brought that in, threw it down. Yeah, so
good for you.
I was never alone.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you relate that bond and tightness to being homeschooled and just being with each other 24/7?
Yeah, being together a lot, and then just also a lot of older brothers. I feel like people like, oh yeah, the older brother experience. He's just picking on you and beating you up all the time. Not my experience whatsoever. My brother freaking loved me to death. He wants me to be better than he is. Yeah. Always there to help me. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I would put a lot of that on being homeschooled. One, because we obviously this, but people who grow up and go to public school or whatever, they're really only good at hanging out with their peers that they know. Whereas my brother and I, when we finished studying about the ancient Romans, our entire year's trip would be, now we're going to Rome. We'd learn about Hellenism in Greece. We'd then go to Athens and run 100 meters where the Olympics used to be held. And so we just got to travel all over the world together as brothers.
That's cool.
And then because my parents, I come from a lower middle class family, but my parents were like, oh, we're gonna live in a smaller house so we can go do things. And so we had all these awesome experiences together. Mm-hmm. And then which was great because I think it'd be really difficult to be born with a disability versus going through the first 18 years of my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I feel like that I think the complete opposite, because you had a taste of freedom, life, what it was like, and then that gets ripped from you. But when you're born into it, I feel like you just don't know any different.
That's true, but now I can relate with people so well.
Okay.
And then this is just one. This is one observation I've had. I found that people that are born with disabilities are the people that get really mad when you help them. Like sometimes, I'm sure you've seen it before, but you open the doors from some kind of wheelchair, like on a walk or something, like, I can do it. And those guys are normally like, because their entire life people have been trying to help them and pity them, and so they wouldn't want them to fix it. They're like, oh no, I don't need that help. Whereas me growing up, not being in a wheelchair, I know that you're just like, oh, I legitimately have superpowers compared to you. Like I can do this in 2 seconds. The person's just trying to help you. They don't like feel bad for you. They're just like, oh yeah, I can grab that for you and hand it to you. Versus you spending 6 minutes to get something off a shelf.
Yeah.
And so I think it's made my life way easier having lived that life. And then also, getting to live like the fun experience I got to do, surfed in Hawaii, I've, skied the coolest places you can, jumped off cliffs, done all kinds of fun stuff.
Yep.
I can relate to people with whatever they're doing. And so I'm happy that I got to live 18 years.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're going to have it.
But I have a lot of people, I know do know a lot of people who are like, oh, I wish I had never known. But
really?
Yeah.
No, I'm like you. I'd want to, if I was cool experiencing it, it would be hard to get over that phase. But once you realize, hey, this is my new life and this is what the cards I've been dealt.
But man,
you got to experience it.
I think you'll agree with this. Almost everything comes down to mindset.
100%.
And I think most people that find themselves in wheelchairs, me not being able to walk is my disability. But for most people, their brain is their disability. And it's their limiting factors they put on themselves. Because I've got a freaking awesome life. Like, I can't walk, and being in a wheelchair sucks. It's brutal. It's 1,000 minor inconveniences every single day.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of things really hard. But, man, I do more in a wheelchair than most people do when they can walk. And I've got a phenomenal life, man. I'm super blessed. God's taking really good care of me.
Good.
So
that's awesome, man. How did your buddy turn out, injury-wise?
Oh, man. Brad had no injuries. Yeah. Not a scratch. I think he might have got a scratch on his hand, like an actual scratch. Yeah, but
okay,
nuts. But I will give him this. This was a contentious thing for a while. Whether did Brad come back to save him or did he leave the thing or whatever? I don't know the answer to that question. Obviously, I don't have memories of the accident, but knowing Brad's heart and knowing who he is, and then hearing like differing accounts or whatever, I will say I'm of the absolute belief that. Brad Ledford came back into a burning car to save my life. He had no injuries, and he could have died doing that, but he came to save my life. So, Brad's a good brother. Good guy.
Man.
He lives out in California now. Brad lives a cool life, man. He has a really cool company. They make it's like seltzers, tequila seltzers.
Okay.
But they're like very healthy for you. But then also, he's got a freaking ranch. Just he's a good old Appalachian boy just living in California. So he has a good time.
Good, man.
Brad's cool.
So I mean that's a hell of a road to recovery. When you're out for, was it 2-3 years before? How was physical therapy starting over?
Man.
Were there any obviously besides being paralyzed, was there major nerve damage?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a terrible issue with neuropathy. So I will feel like the best way I can explain it, and I'm sure there's gonna be some neurosurgeon on here who knows exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about neuropathy. But the best way that I can explain it is when my spinal cord was swelling, I was physically on fire at the time. Like, not like metaphorically, I was actually on fire.
Was it your clothes, or do you have like third-degree burns all over you?
Deep burns all over my legs.
Really?
Yeah. So I was physically on fire at the time while my spinal cord was swelling.
Jeez.
And then that's when it got damaged. And so imagine there is a scar going through my spinal cord of me being on fire. And so when my brain sometimes tries to connect to my legs, it will then get a signal from my spinal cord, which makes it as real as, if I was to burn myself right now, that sends to my brain, hey, you're on fire. And so for the longest time, I would wake up in the middle of the night and pour water on my legs because I'd be like, oh, I'm on fire. I'm physically on fire.
You were feeling that pain.
Oh, yeah. And it feels as real as if I was to put my hand in a fire right now.
You still have this?
Oh, yeah. It's brutal. It's brutal. But it's gotten significantly better. So I've got a spinal cord stimulator implanted where my kidney used to be. So it goes up my spinal cord, then into the bottom of my brain stem. And so what that does is it helps send the exact same wavelength down my spinal cord as when it sends pain up. And so that probably cut the pain in about 60% less happening. But yeah,
when it happens, it's the same.
It's the same, yeah. So what happens is thankfully it leaves as fast as it comes. But it's so the biggest things. There's 3 things that really make it worse or exacerbate it. 1 is lack of sleep. 2 is stress, and 3 is barometric pressure. So can't control barometric pressure.
Okay.
And then I picked a very stressful job where you don't sleep much. But thankfully, man, I got a cool God, and I don't mind pain.
Good, huh?
I don't mind pain. So it's a good life. Yeah. But then also I got nerve damage in my hand. And so I can't feel most of my left arm. Which when I was getting tattoos here, I didn't tell the guy doing the tattoos. He's like, "Dude, you sit like a freaking rock." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it doesn't hurt at all."
That's
but
nice.
The most fun thing about this is I can't really feel my left hand. So when someone brings a plate to the table, hey, be careful, that's hot. Just grab it, look right at them. It's a phenomenal time.
I like to say shit. Damn, man, that's wild.
Yeah, but
that's wild chaos, man.
Yeah, man. So that was the going through the accident very difficult. But you know what? It does it like legitimately. So I physically have a backbone reinforced with titanium, but mentally it gave me one too. Like there's almost nothing that can happen in my life where I feel like I'm like, oh gosh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is really not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, I could be in a hospital right now. And then the one thing that it has made my life difficult with it makes it very hard for like average empathy. So like if
Explain.
so like if someone's going through something very real, like an actual really difficult thing, I am more empathetic than almost anyone I know because I'm like, dude, I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like your life has changed forever. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Like I am so sorry about that. But if someone's like, gosh, I'm so stressed out, I got to get all this done before I go on vacation next week, and I don't know if I'm gonna have time. Like, I don't care.
Boo-hoo.
Yeah, I'm like, I really don't care. Like,
I could see that.
yeah, because like I was in the hospital one time, and then I was just kind of rolling around, feeling really bad for myself, and I decided to go down to the burn unit. And
okay.
You ever want to stop feeling bad for yourself? Go to a burn unit and see the kids in there, and you will never feel bad for yourself again.
Oh.
Yeah, and so going through that, and then I can imagine you being a Marine. Or you know so many veterans who I'm sure have seen their friends die in unnecessary ways, and then especially now being out of the military and being probably more politically involved than before, you kind of realize, oh, that was literally just for like some random company to make money. Like these people didn't even do anything.
I'm in that stage in my life right now for sure. Where you look at, especially like take Ukraine, and it's like why are even both sides, right? Why are so many people dying? And they're not just dying now; they're dying by like drones.
Could you imagine dying by a drone, dude? Imagine the like psychological just brain fuck.
Or just hearing these things whizzing around.
And have you seen them dropping phosphorus?
Everything now,
dude. Imagine having a drone drop
phosphorus.
And it's a war crime, but it's just happening nonstop. It's insane.
And we're funding it.
And I know, dude. It's the most. So
we'll get into that.
Okay.
I don't want to jump ahead. I want to get into how you got into politics first. But yeah, dude. Well, I mean, I have.
Excited. We should talk about Ukraine. Right, I'm just kidding. No, go ahead.
I have vets that I had a buddy of mine. He's a triple amputee, and he's in that time where he's like, dude, he's like my life, like 2 legs and an arm, right? And he's like, he goes down one day, and his dad was helping him, and his dad's like, he's going through physical therapy. I think he was at Walter Reed at the time. He's telling me the story, and his dad's bitching to him, and like, yo, like, what the hell? Like, my son needs help. And they're like, hey, sir, like, we'll take you and your son downstairs. And that's where the quad amps were learning. And he's like, I watched guys trying to just sit up. And he's one below, one above, then he's missing hands. So he's got limbs. And he's like, it was that day forward. He's like, I count my blessings every day that I could be a quad amputee and never wipe my ass, never hold my child, never just be, like struggling to sit up. And so it's, it happens, and so I get what you're saying. Like, obviously I've never experienced anything like that, but to hear these guys are like, dude, it could always be worse.
Could always be worse.
Always be worse. And so politics, I guess we could shift gears into that since that's your world now. What in the hell made you want to decide to get into politics? And when did that start? Was this a high school thing, prepping for it? Or did this happen after the accident?
No. I knew I wanted to be involved in the government in some sense. I just wanted to live a life of consequence.
Okay.
Like I wanted to make a massive difference. From a very young age.
Okay.
I think the first time I ever wrote down that I wanted to be a congressman, I was like 11 or 12.
Really? And you don't come from like a political family?
No, not at all.
Really?
Not at all. No.
So just being in that area, kind of near, in that whole D.C. I mean, you're kind of close.
No.
Nothing. No influence.
We're not close to D.C. at all.
Yeah.
Western North Carolina has nothing to do with D.C.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, kind of that region. I
right.
mean,
okay, you're from the West Coast, man.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
No, I'm from upstate New York originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not close. Like
I get it.
Yeah.
I guess you're right.
I could go up Shenandoah Valley. It's like an 8-hour drive. It's a long ways.
That's close.
Yeah. That's close. See, these people on the West Coast,
out west,
they live out here. There's one city, and then it's like, hey, 6,000 miles away is another city. Did you know that the bottom of Guatemala is closer to Texas than the southern tip of Texas is to the northern tip of Texas?
No.
Did you know that there are places in Canada that are closer to Texas than the northern tip of Texas is to the southern tip of Texas?
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys just don't understand space.
I drive 5.5 hours to go see my buddy. So I get it. I get it.
But no, so there was really no influence from geographically or from like family history to be involved in politics. But my family all did take politics very seriously. It was a very normal dinner conversation. We all listen. I would say I'm a Rush baby. We all listen to Rush Limbaugh, all the time. It was a very, and we would always follow current events and all that stuff. And then just growing up in the South, you have very conservative values, anyways.
Yeah.
Just kind of being in the country. But then, so I was 24 years old, and then my congressman, who had done speech and debate with me when I was in high school, he was my coach there, and I was very close with his son. He left to go become the chief of staff for Donald Trump.
Okay.
So that was wild. And then
he was your mentor in a way, like showing and kind of opening the ropes for you?
Yeah, because I remember I was 14 years old, and I was going to my first speech and debate competition. Okay. And because I love to speak, like public speaking is what I love to do. But I was a football player, like working out, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, oh, I want to do speech and debate. I think it'd be kind of a good rounding thing to do. I want to actually know how to do it. Like, I have this naturally born gift. I want to hone it.
And it's a great skill to have.
Great skill to have. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and then just being able to understand how a conversation flows and to keep track. I think everybody should do a debate at some time. It makes you a more lethal person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But then, anyways, I just remember it was just not my world at all. A lot of really nerdy people, not nerdy in a way that I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I remember I got there and my mom's driving. This is in South Carolina, and I don't know how to tie a tie. I'm 14. And I'm I don't know how to do this. But my dad was working, so he wasn't there to tie it for me. Okay. And I just remember looking out, and there, Mark Meadows was a pretty successful real estate developer up in the Highlands. And I just remember seeing him walking. He's got his shoulders hunched, his hands in his cardigan, and he's walking kind of through the fog. And I remember running up, hey, Mr. Meadows, I don't know how to tie my tie. And I remember he's like, oh, Madison, he tied it for me right quick. And so I was really close to his son, so I knew him that way, but he wasn't in politics at all. I remember when I found out he was running for Congress is when my accident happened.
Oh, okay.
And so I was just like, wow, I had no idea that he was going for politics. And then he became a congressman kind of more so out of nowhere. And then now being in politics, I realized there was a lot of background work that went into that.
For sure.
But just from an outsider standpoint, had no idea he was going to politics.
Yeah.
But he did make a massive difference in my life, because this is kind of at the 2-year mark after my accident where I just felt worthless, because I realized, I'm not going to walk again. I was getting to a really dark place. I was very, very confident that I was my life's just worthless. I had lost, because I went from 225 to 98 pounds.
Damn.
I was so small, so frail. Everything was awful. But then I remember I was coming back from the Shepherd Center I was down there for rehab for a couple weeks. And then I found out that Mark Meadows had just won his election. It was a midterm election. And so he was having a victory party at this place in the Biltmore Estate, or the Biltmore Village. And my mom was like, oh, you want to go? I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. I remember I went. And now being in politics, I realized how much it meant. Because when you're at these victory parties, there are so many, you're so donor focused.
Okay.
Okay, these are my donors, and it's not that you're gonna go help them because they donate to you, but these people literally help you win your campaign, and so you want to say, hey man, thank you so much for your support.
You're just rubbing elbows.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's I really appreciate you, because these people gave you the ammunition to fight your battle, and so it's not like you're being oh, these are I answer to these people. You answer your whole district. Congressman Meadows wasn't like that. A really good guy. But then I remember he saw me from the stage. He just finished his speech. And I remember he just jumped right off the thing. He had a couple security guys with him. And he walked over. And I remember he was having people trying to pull him away to go, oh, you got to go talk to this person. He was like, no, wait. And he knelt down. And I remember I've got a picture of it. And he talked to me for a long time. And then he's like, what are you doing now? I was like, oh, just got home. I could barely speak. And then he was like, Madison, I want you to come work for me.
Really?
And I was like, what? And I was like, well, sir, I can only sit up 3 hours at a time right now. And then all this stuff. And he was like, and I was like, do you want me to call your office and blah, blah? He's like, no. And then he wrote his personal phone number down and handed it to me. He's like, you call me. And so I gave him a phone call, and he hired me. And I just did front of office stuff. But
what did that do for morale?
It changed huge life change. Because I had some issues with Mark Meadows in my election. There was just he was backing somebody else's wife's best friend. And then being the chief of staff to the president, he had a lot of power to back somebody. And so, but I will always love Mark Meadows and his entire family, because he took such good care of me. And that just changed my entire viewpoint of myself. Because, I was in a district office, but you're still dealing with politics and stuff. You really, there's a lot of things of consequence going on. Okay. And, the congressman's coming in, you're doing all kinds of fun stuff. And so it was a really exciting time to get to be there. And
that's kind of where you got the kind of sink your teeth in.
See, that's where I really, like, for the first time, really sunk my teeth. I knew I wanted to be in politics. I wanted to be a congressman when I was very young.
Yep.
But that was the first time being like, oh, I see how this works.
This
This is really
solidified
interesting.
it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this
and
is
so
something.
I now knew the world. But then, I had left that. I started a real estate company. And then after that, I was 24 years old and found out Mark Meadows left to be the chief of staff to the president. So the seat was open. There's a very narrow window of time to decide to run for Congress or not, and which was intentional because he wanted somebody else to win who was like handpicked. And then by the time I got to Raleigh to sign my name, 12 people had signed up, so it was a 13-way primary, and it was pretty nuts to run at that age. But I just knew that like the game that was being played for my generation and like the minds of my peers was so intense, and like I knew that also most of your traditional politicians had zero idea about it because Donald Trump changed politics a lot, but
For sure.
Especially in 2024 we can look back and be like, wow, from 2018 to 2024 is a totally different world,
Night and day.
yeah. But at that point that change was still kind of happening, and so there was all the traditional people, because normally when you run for politics, it's like, okay, so, you probably get involved with your GOP, then you become, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong for this, but then you become a county commissioner or a city councilman, and then you do pay your dues there, you work up.
Because there's time.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, then you become a state rep, and you're representing, 30, 45,000 people. And then next thing you know, you go from that, you do that for 6 years, and then you run for state senate. And then you're in the state senate, you're representing like 300,000 people, like half a congressional district at this point.
You're like, nah.
Oh, well, yeah,
I'm
and
going for it.
then they go from there, and then they run for Congress. And then it's this whole thing. But, man, they become so tamed, they become so conditioned, and they become so bought in those years going through that process because they realize, oh, well, I got to pay favors to this guy, and this guy's done
I have
his time.
a question for you later on that's going to tie you back into this.
Okay.
That's interesting to know.
Yep.
So it's okay. Continue.
It's a whole process they use because one, they get to vet these people, but two, they get to tame these people.
So
And
every
then-
tier that they're playing the game, they become more and more of a yes sir because
more a system guy.
That's what's going to get them to the next level.
Exactly, because and especially at those smaller levels of politics, if a outside organization, whether it's the GOP, the state party, or like a PAC, comes in and gives you $100,000 for a county commissioner seat, that's as if like you're in a congressional race and someone gave you $20 million.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot of money. And so they're able to teach these people that, oh, hey, you play the game and I can like win an election for you. And for not a lot of money.
So that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Yeah. But then, so all these people running for office, and let me tell you, man, if you want to piss politicians off, go out of turn. There's because these people, they're all in their 60s, they're wearing pleated pants and tasseled loafers, and there's some great business guys who are doing it. I ran against some guys who I really like to this day, respect them a lot. But I also ran against a lot of yes men, a lot of guys who were just like, well, I paid my time, and this guy, we don't know him, and I've been involved in
they use
this
that against you.
Oh yeah, but also, no one in American history has ever won an election at 24 years old.
Yeah,
ever. There's a guy younger than me that was in Congress, but he was appointed, not elected. I want to point that out.
That's a difference.
It's a big difference.
Big difference.
And so I won my election at 24, but I turned 25 before I got sworn in. And so, but anyway, I was completely written off. It was like, oh, that's a sweet project this kid's doing. That's really nice. And
how did that feel? I mean, obviously you're in it. Like this is something that you want to pursue, but at the same time, did you think you had a shot, or were you like,
I knew
just screw it, I'm going to go for it?
The second I heard about it that I was going to win that race.
Really?
I never, not for 2 seconds, I was ever like, are we going to pull this off? It's going to be hard.
Really?
Yeah, and because the way that Mark Meadows left to the seat, it allowed for very few people to sign up, but it was late in the political season, and so most of your professional campaigning staff is already taken up, which was a massive godsend. Because if I had hired traditional campaign staff, we would have ran a traditional campaign, and we would have gotten reamed.
Why?
They would have just bent us over because
they have time to pick you apart, or what?
Well, no, they have time to pick you apart, but I mean, again, like the traditional way that you run a campaign is, well, you need to get the endorsements from these people, and you need to show up here,
town hall meetings,
and we need to see how much money you can raise, and and then then your volunteers are just kind of all your volunteers, you come in because you got to think the average congressional seat, not here in Idaho because you only have 2 congressmen, but the average congressional seat's about a little north of 700,000 people, and so it's a lot of people, but and you need 51% to win. And so imagine if you know me, you want to help me win this race, and we're a traditional campaign, and you come up like, hey man, I want to help volunteer campaign. I want you to win. And then I look at you and say, hey, I need 350-something thousand votes to win this election. You'd be like, well, cool. I mean, good luck. Tell me what I can do to help. I'd love to do that. And so then, they're not very motivated volunteers because no one can provide you 350,000 votes. That's insane.
Yeah.
And so, they might all show up for like, we're going to canvass, this county, and they're all going door to door and handing off stuff and that kind of stuff. But man,
skipped all that.
I called all my best friends, and I was like, hey guys, I need you for 3 months. We're going to win a primary. Just fly into my state. And so most of my buddies own their own businesses, and they're like, sure, let's do it. So I had a bunch of buddies come into my state, and we were all just a bunch of young bucks, and we decided that we were going to run it like Moneyball.
Really?
Yeah, and we were like, we're going to run this campaign completely differently. It's all about just getting packages to a destination. Like, I need to get a voter here, and we need to know how many people we need. And so in a primary election, you probably need there's probably 81,000 people that vote in a Republican primary in that district. And so I knew exactly what I needed to do to win. And so we knew our golden number. And so instead of being like, hey, would you mind helping me with this? When I would go speak at a rally, I was like, because my superpower is I can speak really well. I can thrash the floor with these people speaking. Because they're going to be like, I'd like to increase GDP incrementally at the end of this year by 0.6%. Everyone's like, oh, okay, great. That's exciting. Whereas I'm like, there is a war being fought for the hearts and minds of your children. Like, there are people who run this country who hate you. They are sending money overseas to money launder it to get back to them. They are starting wars and emergencies nonstop because it helps shareholder value for these massive organizations who own all of your politicians. The majority of your politicians have been involved in some honeypot scheme and are now completely dominated by these people. If you want your country to turn into a communist country, and maybe we'll say it's a democracy, maybe we'll say it's a republic, whatever, but if you want it to live in a communist nation, continue voting for the exact same thing. And then I'd be like, a lot of people are going to be mad at me because I have tattoos and I dip and I like to smoke cigars and I like to shoot guns and I cuss and I'm going to rock the boat a lot. But the fucking boat's sinking, and unless we save it, all of your grandchildren and your children are not going to know the same freedoms that you have known.
For sure.
And people will be like, fuck yeah, that's what I want.
See, that, like, to me, that's speaking to the people.
Exactly.
Not to the politicians. And that's where I think with the elections over the last forever until now, your generation and Trump and changing everything, it's like you hear these people and you're just like, why the fuck are we still voting the same way for the same people in the same states?
Because these people's speeches and all these things are not tailored to the people, like you just said.
For sure.
It's tailored to super PACs, and it's tailored to get endorsements from certain people. So let's say you want an endorsement from your governor in your state because you think it's going to gain you 6,000 votes.
Okay.
Then be like, okay, well, the governor really cares about, H-1B visas. And so you're going to go talk about H-1B visas a lot. But to the average person, like, I don't care. So my entire thing, I was like, no super PAC would ever bet on me because no one my age has ever won.
Okay.
And no person would ever endorse me because it's going to mess up the record because no one my age has ever won. I was like, I'm just going to go direct to the people, and they're going to be my endorsement. And so then I'd have my boys in the crowd, and then after I'd give a barn burner of a speech, everyone's all excited about, man, I want to help you win your campaign. I'd be like, oh, we're in Yancey County. I'd be like, what neighborhood do you live in? I'd be like, oh, I live in Whispering Falls. I'd be like, Whispering Falls? No way. You know what? I need 14 votes out of Whispering Falls. You give me 14 votes out of Whispering Falls, I will win this election. And they'd be like, oh, well, I mean, I've got 4 people in my house that could vote. And I was like, oh, you need 10 more. I was like, do you think in the next 3 months you could find 10 more people to vote for me in your neighborhood? Be like, yeah, I mean, Chuck would do it and his family would do it. And then I'd be like, cool, give your phone number to this guy. So then we would sit there and we'd phone call. And we'd call him like once a week, however much.
You're just grinding this out.
Yeah, and I would have no problem. Like even to this exact moment, I have no problem saying the strategy I will use to win elections anytime, because I will outwork and kick the shit out of these guys who just want to be like, oh well, I've got an endorsement from this person, so I know I'm going to win, and they're not willing to work 18 hours a day to win this election. Whereas my guys are willing to do whatever it takes. And so then we just did that exact same process until we got to the exact number of votes we needed. I've had this many people say yes, that they will vote for us. And then voter registries are public. It won't tell you who they voted for, but it'll tell you if they voted. And so then we created, my buddy, not me, I'm not that smart, but my buddy created a little AI program that then as soon as somebody would vote, it would take, and it was one of our names, it would take their name off our computer system. And so then we knew, okay, yeah, so 51% of our people have voted, and then I'd send our people out 2 by 2 Be like, hey, go knock on this guy's door. So instead of going door to door, being like, hey, will you vote for my guy? We know where you live. We know that you're going to vote for me. So all I have to do is show up. Hey, man, have you voted yet? What can we do to help you vote? Like, oh, well, I'm changing the oil in my car. I think I'm going to do it tomorrow. I was like, cool. I brought Daniel. Daniel's going to change the oil in your car. Jump in mine. We're going to go vote right now. And it was just whatever it took to get the people to the polls.
Good for you.
Yeah, and so then...
And that worked.
Yeah, and so then we came in second, ended up coming in second.
Yep.
And then Mark Meadows' hand-picked person, she came in first, but it was only like 200 votes. But
that's
none
nothing, right?
of us hit 30%, and it's because it was a 13-way primary. And so then that meant that it went to a runoff. So it was then just between me and her. And then she got endorsed by the President of the United States. And Donald Trump has never lost a Republican nomination or Republican primary ever.
How did that make you feel? Did you feel defeated at that point?
So
I mean, I know you're a pretty positive guy, but like at that stage, that's David and Goliath.
Dude,
like when you,
oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said that. So I was at Shine with all of my campaign staff and all of my family.
Okay.
And so it's this nice restaurant in my hometown.
Okay.
And we were just having this like campaign meeting. And then all of our phones go off at one time. And I knew exactly what that meant. It's a robocall to every single person in the district. So we all answer our phones, and it's Donald Trump's voice. Linda Bennett is the greatest woman in the world. She's phenomenal. She's Mark Meadows' friend. I know she's wonderful. And so he endorsed Linda Bennett.
and you were like,
Everyone at the table,
oh,
they were all pissed about it. At that moment, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I was winning that election.
really?
Because it was David and Goliath. And I was like, guys, if I win this election at 24 years old, everyone's going to be like, you are a savant. You're the future. How did you do that? That's incredible. And I was like, God's not getting any glory. But if I win against everything that the world has to offer, it's like God, everyone's like, okay, that was God. Like, same thing with me coming out of my car accident alive. It's God. You know, all my surgeons are like Christians now because like, there's no way you could have lived. And then, same thing with this. And so I was like, guys, I know you feel like we're going to lose because of that. I promise we're going to beat her. And so we started hunting her. I would not let her speak without me at the same place. I would speak at the same time. And this was a really good woman. Her name's Linda. Phenomenal person. Someone you want in your Bible study. She's great, but not made for war.
Okay.
Like I wanted to go to D.C. to fight a war against these people. And
You need to.
Yeah. And so anyway, we just kept all out nonstop, and we beat her. And then I remember we were driving home from the victory party. Awesome thing. I mean, it was just such a movement. It was so fun.
Wait, don't blow over that.
So
Let's talk about the night. I mean, it's coming down to like obviously you've
Dude,
got to be
this
level 10 max anxiety.
So my advisors had told me that I was going to win my first election.
Okay.
They were like they said we were going to come in first in the primary and it was going to be done deal. And I was like, oh, really? Because they had done their polling and all kinds of stuff. I was like, we won. That's it. And they're like, yeah. And then I remember we're sitting there. My best friend is like my campaign manager, but we also had a consultant on board.
Okay.
And so the consultant was like, oh yeah, you won. Like it's game over. Like I've seen it. Like you got this. And then we're sitting there. I'm getting ready to give my speech and all kinds of stuff. My buddy's sitting there typing away like as the stuff's coming in. And I'm looking at my buddy Blake, and he's got just a weird expression on his face. Like, Blake, what's going on? He's like, oh, I don't know, man. It's taking a second. And then he was like, eventually he was like, you're not winning this election. And he's like, you might come in second. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, like you're gonna come in second, and like it's gonna be a runoff. And I just remember, I looked at this guy, and I was like, if you ever lie to me about an election again, I was like, I don't care if I'm going to jail, I'm fighting you. And I was like, I will fight you right now. And then Blake was like, okay, let's chill out. And I was so pissed.
What's the point of lying to you? I mean,
Yeah, well, no. There was legitimately just more people that came out to vote than he expected.
Okay.
And so, but I was like, never give me false hope again. Like never
Straight,
lie to me.
shoot it straight.
And the problem is I would have fought harder if I knew that we were like, if there was a possibility that we weren't coming in first.
Okay.
And so, anyways, but my guys were working 18 hours a day nonstop, and so like I was pushing them to the limit. And so, but then once he kind of made it clear, I was like, okay, well, we have a general election right after this. So I was like, so we're gonna push down to 10 hours a day. And so, anyways, so I was pissed about that.
So you let off the gas.
Let off the gas a little bit.
Okay.
But then in this next election, I was like, we were like, okay, me and my buddy know how to run this election now. Like, we don't need your help. Like, we're gonna do this our way. And I was like, where does she live? And I was like, I am winning her precinct. Like, where she lives, where she goes to church, all of that, I'm winning her town. And so I spent all of my time in her hometown in her neighborhood. And like legitimately, aside from one person, I think every single house in her neighborhood had my sign in her yard. In the yard. I was like, I want her to see me everywhere she goes. And like we had her followed. Not like in an illegal way, just like in a political way. Like we had her followed. So if she had an event she was going to, and she stopped posting publicly where her events were because we would just show up at them. And then, she had all the establishment behind her. So they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cawthorn. You're not on the schedule to speak." And then I would just very loudly be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a coronation, or do the people want to hear from both sides?" And then everybody be like, "Oh, yeah, we'll hear from both sides."
So you were taking those tactics.
Oh yeah. Like we would not let her just fly under the radar. I was like, "You're gonna face me head on, nonstop." Because we did a debate and it was a thrashing.
Yeah.
And so then they were like, "Oh, we're not debating anymore." I was like, "You're not getting away from this. Like you want to represent these people, then beat me. Like let's go." And so it was a fun race. But then driving home, this is where it gets exciting. Driving home from the victory party, my fiance was in the car. I had a couple of my buddies in the back, and my phone's connected to Bluetooth. I mean, we're jazzed. I remember the second that there's an actual. So I was getting a photograph taken of me and my father because we were like in the back room. We knew we were going to win this thing, but then the AP called the election. And they're like, "Oh, Madison Cawthorn just won this election." And I remember my buddy Micah was sitting there on the phone, and he swiped up, and he was like, "Maddie, you just won."
Shut up.
But I happened to be taking a picture with my father at that exact moment, and it's like on like a really nice camera. So the moment I won the election and found out, it's all captured, and it's me, my best friend, my other best friend, my dad's in the picture, my older brother's in the background, and so you have all of our faces.
Dude, how rad is that?
It was sick.
Good, you deserve that shit,
really
man.
Cool.
Good for you.
Yeah, but then we're driving back home, and I'm the only person to have beaten Donald Trump in an endorsement ever. And we're driving back home, and then I get a call, and the phone says restricted, not unavailable, nothing like that, and it says restricted. And then I answer and said, "Hello, Mr. Cawthorn. This is Chris from the White House, from the Air Force One switchboard. May I connect you to the President of the United States?" And I was like, "Yes." And
bro, like
my fiance's in the car, like what? Everyone's in the back, and we get it on video. And then there's a big long pause, but my phone's connected to Bluetooth. And so then across surround sound speakers,
everybody's hearing this.
"Madison, it was incredible. You even beat my ass. I remember when they brought out the photo after you won. I said, 'Why are we endorsing against this guy? He's from Central Casting. This is so dumb.'" And he's like, "It was incredible." And then, anyways, then I got to go up to the White House and meet the president.
How
and
awesome
bring my whole
was that
family.
call, dude?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool.
You had to have gotten pretty emotional at that point.
Oh yeah, big time. Oh, that was a moment. Like after we hung up, we were all kind of jazzed for a second. But the greatest period of one of the favorite moments of my entire life was after that runoff election, because we should not have won that. Mm-hmm. It was just nuts. But then I went home with everybody that I'm really close with in my life, all of my family, all my staff, everyone that I almost everyone that I could say I love that person, like someone I would be willing to die for. They were all in one place at that night.
Good for you.
And so we all went back home, and I just remember it took probably 35 minutes, but I went around a circle of like 45 people and told them exactly why I love them and why, like the difference they made in my life at that time. Yeah. And so it was a really emotional time. And then
what was that night like when you had time to yourself?
Very much time with God. Just being like, how did that happen? Because in the trench of it, like in the actual election time, we were so busy that I didn't. There was no breath. But so sure-footed in my actions, like I knew what I believed. I knew what I was saying. I knew I was going to win. And so, but it was just executing nonstop. But then after that, it was just kind of being like, I felt like I just zoomed out of the whole world for I was like, whoa, that's nuts.
It's a pretty heavy weight that probably just sinks in. I mean, after the call, you get home, you congratulate everybody, then you finally get like a time to sit by yourself and reflect. I mean, that's got to be a pretty incredible moment.
Yeah, well, that's when you start having to sit there and be like, okay, so all these people elected me to do the things that I said need to be done. I was like, how do we do those? Mm-hmm. So then you have to start sitting there and be like, okay, because the crazy thing is, as soon as you finish your election in your district, you then have a more important election in D.C. It's like now because it's not an executive branch. You're not making decisions. Like you might have, because there's probably 33 people right now. Hang on, we'll throw Eli Crane in there. But there's about 36 Republican congressmen that I can think of that have the backbone and the knowledge and the beliefs to do the right thing, regardless of the backlash. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, you need 51% of Congress to pass anything. And so not only do you have to be willing to take the backlash until it's like, because look at Ron DeSantis during COVID.
Yep.
He was attacked brutally, but he had the backbone to say, hey, I know I'm right, and I'm willing to take this onslaught of you guys saying that I'm killing my whole state, I'm the worst person in the world, and have everyone attack me for months and months, because I know at the end of this I'm going to be proved right. And now Ron DeSantis is the greatest governor in the entire country. Why he ran against Trump, I have no idea. Stupid. But
Bro, that was
best governor in the country.
Not a smart decision.
Yeah, but the problem with Congress is it's not just you that has to be strong. You have to keep 51% of the caucus strong, and yet it's impossible. And so that's where another election becomes very important. Is like what's your opinion held like in Washington D.C. And then you start learning about like, oh, let's say you're a crypto advisor expert. You're not going to be put on a information and technology committee, because that committee costs $900,000 to be put on. Like, how much money did you donate to the NRCC? It
goes down to that.
Yeah, and that's not an official thing. You're never handed a piece of paper that says that, but it's well known.
Really?
It's well known. Oh yeah. It's
really?
Like, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, the committee didn't think that you were going to be good on it. I'm like, what? This guy's worked on Wall Street his entire life. He's not going to financial services. Are you dumb? And so, yeah. So there's a big game to be played.
How
you get
deep
your election.
is the game when you're getting now that you're in? This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this where you start learning like, oh shit, okay, like this is the big leagues, like of how deep, I don't want to say bribing, but as far as you getting coerced to, hey, this guy's this way, we like him because we don't like so-and-so because, and this group is going to help fund you now. We're going to go this way. Is this where this starts?
Yeah, there's a lot of carrot and sticks. Like a lot of carrot and sticks. I mean, I had somebody. It was something that we did not do, but I had somebody. I was married at the time. I had somebody offer. Well, if we could get this passed and change this import law, your wife would probably need to sit on the board of this we'll say some agriculture board. And I'm like, well, she that does anesthesiology, I don't know what she has to do with agriculture. It's like, it doesn't matter, but she'll make $400,000 a year. And so then you're very indirectly bribed.
Okay, so I have one of my questions from one of our followers and supporters. Has any attempt been made, and this is by dbarks_19, has any attempt been made, whether it be bribery, coercion, to push a certain agenda, to vote a certain way? And if not, when does it start? So I guess that's a lead into that. So like, when do you start seeing the bribes?
When you start picking your staff.
Really?
Yeah, I remember I was called into a high-ranking member of the party's office really late at night, and then I was told, hey, just so you know, if you don't import your staff and your chief of staff is someone from this list, we'll know you're a team player. I was like, well, what does it mean that I'm a team player? What does that give me? It's like, oh, well, we'll make sure that some of the articles don't come out about you. Like, we can play, defense for you on the back end of that. You'll probably get better committees and all this stuff. And they're going on and on. And then I was like, oh, I don't know what that means. But your staff is so directly tied to your policy because, again, these bills are thousands and thousands of pages long.
Oh, I mean, you see them come out.
Yeah, but you have to vote on them. And even if you were willing to sit there and read the entire bill, you physically, not a human alive, can read the entire bill before you have to vote on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, no one can read that fast. I mean, it's like, oh, you have 12 hours to vote on this bill. It's 1,300 pages. And it's using such crazy language. You have to look all the stuff up. It's crazy. So you legitimately have to have your staff go through it. But let's say that your chief of staff is used to work for a lobbying company that is big on one thing. They'd be like, gosh, I know the boss wouldn't like this, so, and then he gets all from the legislative department. They give them all recommendations and things that the Congress is not going to like, things he will like, so you have to weigh all your stuff, and then it's down to like 4 or 5 pages. He can be like, oh, take this off, so that's not even on, the Congress doesn't even know it's on there anymore. And so you have to be very careful about who your staff is.
How much pressure and how hard is it to deal with that? I mean, because you skipped all the years of becoming a yes man. How much pressure did that put on you going straight into that role and position, and now they're coming at you?
Man, if I was not I think your personal popularity matters a lot in that situation, because a lot of people are like guest spots on news, like traditional media, is very controlled by the party.
Really?
Yeah. And,
'Cause I've heard Eli talk about the party, and he's like, they run everything.
oh, they run everything. Yeah, and so
they
it's like,
dictate how successful you're going to be.
yeah, and so
technically,
like
right?
let's say you get on the news, like, a bunch, that's gonna help you in donations a lot. That's gonna help you with a ton of stuff being on the news. But if you're just a guy, because I mean, think you're a pretty involved guy. Could you name more than 30 congressmen off the top of your head?
No, absolutely not.
No one can. No, I mean, I could because I do it, but very few Americans can because most of them are very unknown. And the reason they're unknown is because like they just don't do anything. They're not that impressive. And so, for them, if they get put on the news, it's a huge deal. So of course they're going to do whatever the party needs them to do to be able to be put on the
And
news.
that's when they become a yes man.
That's when they become a yes man. And it's multiple different things. And a lot of people can't raise money well because nobody knows who they are.
Okay.
And then so the party has to come in and support them. And so, but for me, it was great. It was, one, I was so young. That made it very different. Two, I'd beaten Donald Trump. And then Trump had very, very graciously offered me to speak at the RNC. So I got to speak to like 61 million
remember
people.
that.
Yeah, and so that just...
What was that like?
Oh, that was nuts. It was also in the middle of COVID, and so it was
Yeah.
so funny because we were all backstage. Everyone's like packed in like sardines, doing makeup. We're all talking, and then for optics' sake, you go out into the stage and it's completely empty, and like you have to bring the passions if you're talking to like 60 million people, but there's no one in there. It's robotic cameras moving around, and so that was exciting.
That's got to be hard though.
Yeah, but writing that speech was nuts.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I was like, jeez. That's so. There was a fun story of how I got that position, but that was magical. That changed my life forever. But getting to be so well known because of that, and then the wheelchair ads up thing, being young, knowing how to use social media, all this stuff, it gave me like a large following, and so that was great because my ratings spoke for themselves. So whether the party wanted me on the news or not, Fox or MSNBC or whoever would be like, oh, we want them on this talk show because it's going to boost our ratings and they make more money.
Well, and it helps that you're young, good-looking, all-American kid.
Stop.
I mean, it's, I'm just saying, that helps. I would imagine, especially being on the news and having the image and come from a crazy story and beating Trump for the first person to actually win against Trump. I mean, that you had all of that stacked in your favor. But I mean, was it still pretty hard for, obviously the whole team
Yeah, it's
for
just
or against you?
yeah, it gets annoying.
Or the
just
party,
because,
I should
because
say.
there's so many more layers to it than like can or even be realized like in the
for
first
sure.
like because it's like, oh well, okay, man, okay, now I've got my bills in there, but then you actually have to get your bill to the floor, and then once it comes to the floor, you have to then take it to that committee, and then you have to walk it through that entire committee. And let's say you get your bill passed, everything goes great. The Senate might not pick it up, and then you got your law passed, but now the appropriators like, yeah, but we're not going to give any money towards that project. So it technically is a law, but there's no funding for it, so it doesn't matter.
Is this why nothing ever fucking happens in this country?
Jeez. Well, one thing you actually should kind of be happy about that.
Because if it is negative, it takes some time.
Yeah,
or-
yeah, because you have to build a coalition of support from the people
Okay.
for like almost a full decade to get something done. I mean, look at abortion.
Yeah.
And so that the reason Roe v. Wade was being able to be overturned is because we built a coalition for it over multiple
Years.
decades. And so a lot of things take a lot of time, but unfortunately, the reason why it seems like we've gone so far left as a country is because for like 60 years, the Republicans were just a bunch of pansy cowards who were like, oh my gosh, the news doesn't like me. Well, if I capitulate on this one issue and back up 1 inch, maybe they'll start saying nice things about me. I'm like, who the fuck cares? Who cares if they like you? They're never going to like you. And so, but because of that, we have capitulated and bent the knee, an inch at a time. Not
When the left is taking an inch at a time.
taking an inch at a time.
Little wins.
Going for 60 years.
Yep.
They played the long game. And
Yep.
so now we have a generation of people who are like, oh, I know how to, we're not capitulating. I don't care what you say about me. And also it's because there's non-traditional media, like this conversation we're having right now. Like it can be pushed out to other people. You don't have to only go through traditional media.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Which helps a lot.
Yeah, big time.
Helps a lot. So now that when you get in, I mean, now you're learning the ropes and I mean, is it as exciting as you thought it was going to be, or was it more or less? I mean, now that you're, a congressman and the youngest.
30% of it is the most boring, monotonous stuff you've ever done in your life. Because, like, being in a committee sometimes, you just have to listen because everyone needs to say the same thing for their base about whatever issue. So, there's like 24 people on a committee.
Yeah.
And so you will listen to 24 people in a row or 12 people on the left give the exact same speech over and over and over again because they need to push that clip out to their district.
Okay.
Of them saying, "Oh, well, asking you the tough questions," but everyone in the country wants to hear the exact same tough question if they're a Democrat, and same for a Republican. And so it's sometimes very monotonous to just listen to the exact same thing be said over and over again, and then to also sit there and know that this person just sat down and they purposely didn't tap in to talk until their staffer brought them a speech to read because they didn't write the speech. They don't even know what they're talking about. And so they just sit there, oh, well, now I'm going to read this. And it's so you're just like, you're just dumb. Like, you don't even know what you're devoting on. You have no idea what you're asking. Your staff knows that you need to say this to be reelected, and you're just stupid. And so that's annoying.
Once you got in, what was the negative side? Because, I mean, they're going to find everything.
Yeah, if they can't find anything, they'll just make it up.
How is it dealing with that side of politics, knowing skeletons or not, they're going to fabricate, find, dig up some kid from 6th grade that you said something to in the locker room? Like, how is that part of it?
I mean, the biggest scandal I probably ever had was that I was in a game show when I was 19 on a cruise, or 20 on a cruise ship. With my entire family there, but it was a game show on the cruise ship.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, they found pictures of that and they can just edit out a bunch of different things and make it look really bad. And so it's just so stupid stuff like that. But at first it was very difficult, but then your friend group kind of changes. And so the people who are no one in my life cares a lick about what the media says. I mean, they'll know about it. They'll be like, oh, hey, we need to respond to this some way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But no, it could come out, there could be a live video of one of my friends shooting somebody on the street, and then I'd be like, I'm sure there's a way better reason than whatever the news is saying about that.
For sure.
Everyone in my world is very slow to judgment. I know you as a person. I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the media has an objective, and so
does it get old?
No, I mean at first, when you lose lifelong friends and people you've known your entire life, that's really difficult to be like, wow, you think that of me? You know me, dude. How could you think that? And they're like, oh, well, there's a sheep. But then once your friend group changes, you're so bulletproof.
Did you lose a lot of friends and people?
Not me so much, but my family definitely adjusted some friends.
Oh, I'm sure, huh?
Yeah. That's the hard part, is when it affects other people in your life,
family,
especially if it's not people who are directly involved with your political career.
Yeah,
and it's just you're just attacking them just to mess with me.
Yeah,
that's just so annoying. And so, which is why, Nancy Pelosi does so well, because, Nancy Pelosi isn't going to, if you don't vote for her bill on the left, she's not going to fund a primary opponent for you. But your little cousin is going to lose her job as a nurse at a hospital, or the union's going to shut down an entire operation. Your uncle's hometown's going to lose all their business. And it's wow, that's brutal. That, you're going after everything.
Yeah, she's evil.
Yeah, I mean, but as an operator in politics, she's a lot to be respected there.
She's a master.
Yeah, well, she's a master class. But you know what? But I wish she was on our side, because she gets stuff done. But man, and it's so funny. She's such a devout Catholic, but then just votes for nothing but evil.
Yep. Yeah. Everything. I mean, that's kind of the whole left, is everything. That's what's so crazy to me. And you understand, come from a religious background. And I explain to people, and they're like, well, who, what side? Because I got to know Trump Jr., and I've guided him on some hunts before the first election. And they're some of the greatest people. The Trump family is
great.
Down to earth.
They're the best people.
If you didn't know who they were and you were just tossed into a real world environment with them, you would be like, oh, these guys are hilarious.
Awesome. And Trump's even better. It's incredible.
Great people. And so I got to know them pre-first election. It was actually just during the start of it, working with Secret Service. I actually have a crazy story. If you ever run into Junior, ask him about the time a dude threw an armadillo in their Secret Service van. And he'll know it was me.
I can't wait to hear that story.
And so, but, they're great. And so when people are like, man, who are you voting for? I'm like, I'm voting for the country, the good of the country. And so if you just blindfolded somebody, didn't say left or right, and just listen to what each is going to, my mind is just it blows my mind. I'm just fathomed by, they're supporting abortions on the levels that they want to do and how late term they want to do it.
It's creepy.
You're supporting these peaceful riots that they're burning down police stations and trying to defund police when we should be funding the police, because then if they have the training, there is no excuse. But when you take away the training, they're getting less training, less time in the field. That's when mistakes happen. So it really, I just couldn't comprehend. And that's where, when it comes to people in growing up, it didn't matter if you're left or right, whatever. But now it's like, how do you support this still, knowing everything that this side is leaning towards, supports, funding billions of dollars overseas? And we got homeless veterans on the streets every single day.
Exactly.
We got veterans taking their lives because the VA system is so fucked up. They're taking months to get in to get the help, but we're funding all of everybody else. Open borders, I am all for immigration. I mean, Josh Nulai, his wife, she had to go through the whole entire process. I'm cool. Anybody wants to come and live the American dream? I've had guys on here that joined the military because they wanted to live the American dream. I am 100% for anybody coming to this country, but doing it the right way. And there's no other country that's just come on in and take over, right? You see how those go. And then these people are like, oh, I'm all for it. And it's like, how does your mind process that this is benefiting our country for the good, for the long term? And it's wild to me.
It's wild.
It's wild that some of the stuff that they're even talking about
is like to be capable of being had in public discussion. I'm like, whoa, like, wait, and like when someone's like, dude, if I hear somebody, I've never heard someone say it in real life, but if I heard somebody make a case, well, we shouldn't say the word pedophile. They're minor attracted people.
I mean, that's going around.
I'm like, I want to kill you. Like, I legitimately want to throw you in a wood chipper.
100%. The fact that your mind, they're minor attracted humans.
It's like, they can't help that. I'm like, yes, you can. You absolutely can.
Yeah.
And this is one thing. Everyone talks about the things that they can't help. We're just such an overly diagnosed population.
For sure.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, well, I've been diagnosed with anxiety. I'm like, okay, so you're like afraid of a situation. Doesn't mean like everything in your life is going to make you anxious. Like, if you believe that, it absolutely will.
Yeah, well, then you see these people at these protests, and they're like, I suffer from this and this and this, and they're listing all this shit. And it's like,
and then I'm like, how many drugs do you take accompanied with those? And I'm like, do you realize that you're just a paycheck to these people?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
What's your take on Big Pharma now that RFK is coming in and things are going to start? Well, first,
they're mobilizing.
What do you mean?
Oh, dude, I saw some internal documents from one of their strategic consultants for a bunch of big pharma people for like politics, and just talking about how they want to try and stop RFK. And they're like, okay, we need to start pushing out like surrogates onto podcast stuff, alternative media, because we continue buying like ad space on traditional media that we've done for like 60 years. It's not working. Like, we need to have people go have real conversations, and they're trying to figure out a way to start countering.
Who knows where to go? But I mean, I feel like that's going to be a battle. But they obviously have the money to fund that. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, big pharma. The only people I would say are more dangerous than big pharma to go after, like politically, I'm speaking, is probably the Federal Reserve.
Really?
Yeah. Both private entities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got a question for you.
Hit me, big dog.
This comes from one of our fellow followers. How much does BlackRock and Vanguard control the government and politics?
Oh, directly? Not at all. Of course, not at all. But subsidiaries, consultant firms, all kinds of stuff, a ton. I mean, K Street being like the lobbying firms, they run the federal government. And just because so many people they have to get elected, and the only way to do it for most people is to do it with money, and you get most of your money through lobbyists. And so, how scary is it? Because obviously you're in it on a different level. You're looking at the 3,000-foot level, so you're seeing everything. When here, us as American, just common folk, we just see what's fed to us and what we want to do, what research we're doing on our own. How scary is it being behind the closed doors, seeing the amount of money that's going toward these lobbyist groups and the private funding? Like, is it pretty wild? Oh, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Because, you start going to like these like different fundraisers and stuff at different places. And then you just realize, like the ones in D.C., you just start really becoming aware of how much super PACs and lobbyists just are like completely mandating what happens in the government. And it's the revolving door of Washington, D.C., where people will be on the Hill for a little while. Then they'll go work, they'll get to deputy chief of staff or like legislative director. Then they'll go work for a lobbying firm, and then they'll get their chops up there. But then that lobbying firm will give them a mission. Like, hey, when this comes up in 2 years, you need to make sure whatever office you're in votes for it. It's like, okay. Then they go back to the hill. Then they work their way to become a chief of staff. And then they're the chief of staff. And then they're just like, they're sending their vote recs to the congressman. And he's like, oh, by the way, vote for this. And then as soon as that happens, they leave that office. And then they go back. Now they're like a senior partner at this place. And they're making $600,000 a year.
Oh, shit.
And because they just help get past, a $19 billion package or something. And so that's where you start really realizing, like, they're not just trying to, like, buy favor of a congressman. They're trying to, like, manipulate a congressman and not even know what's in the bill.
For sure.
And it's crazy how it all works.
Okay. Careful with that.
I am being careful.
So.
Is it going to jump?
No, I've had people, when they go to pull that sheath off of it, they run their fingers down and have gone to the bone. So the story with the spear, nobody even ever notices it, but my kind of dumbass, we were down in Texas doing a heli hunt, and we were doing a video, and I make this joke like, man, if somebody ever made a spear, I'd jump out of a helicopter and spear a pig with it. And this kid, I wish I remembered his name, his Instagram, I'd love to shout him out right now, messages me, goes, I'll make you one if you promise to jump out of a helicopter and spear a pig. And at that point,
an airdrop hoplite.
I'm like, well, I got to do it. I had this image and just, you had to. Young and dumb. So this kid hand carves this whole entire handle out of, God, what was it? It's one of the strongest woods that you can get. Yeah. Hand forges this spear tip.
What?
Yes, hand forges everything. Makes the whole thing himself. So we show up, and he's like, man, I only live like an hour from this ranch. Can I come and watch? We're like, absolutely. So my buddy at the time, he's now passed. His name was Gideon. He was one of the owners of Pork Choppers in Texas. So
Pork Choppers is a great name for a helicopter.
He ended up passing away in a helicopter crash. But so anyways, this kid shows up with this spear, and I'm like, fuck, I have to jump out of a helicopter now.
You had to at that point.
And spear a pig with it. And so we off to the skies we go, and we find this pig, and there's this big giant pig running through this field, and helicopters coming up on it. This pig's running, and we got it all on video. And this pig turns and looks, and all I see are these giant cutters. I got my buddy is flying the bird, and I got two buddies behind me, and everybody's like looking at this pig and looking at me like, good luck. I got the skull downstairs. I'll show you. I mean, dude, I'm talking like five finger length cutters. Jeez. Massive. You could see it from the air flying over this thing. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to jump on this thing. And my buddy, the pilot, Gideon's like, he's like, I probably wouldn't. So I'm like, get me on it. And this pig's running. And I've never thrown a spear in my life like this, right? I've had the spear in my hand for couple hours beforehand playing with it, chopping some bamboo or whatever on this place. We're hovering over, and I get this spear, and I'm standing out on the skid of this helicopter, not strapped in anything, and I just, boom, and that spear just, boom,
perfect hit,
buries this thing right in this pig, this big boar as it's running, and it just tumbles over. Wow. And I look back, and my buddy's live on Instagram. This is before you could save lives.
Dude.
And everybody, the whole bird's like look like dumbfounded.
That's
I'm like,
the greatest kill of all
shit.
Time.
Thought greatest kill of all time. So I jump out, and they're like, the bird takes off. They're filming, got a camera guy, so they're filming as I'm on the ground. Like, yeah. I walk up and pull this spear out. This pig goes, it comes right back to life. I pull this little 380 out. I'm like, bah, 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 shoot this pig. So that was that. So then we're like, we have to jump out. So we end up finding this giant sow, huge pig, and she's running. I'm like, fuck, this is it. I got to do this, and we're all filming it. And my dumb ass opened my mouth. And right as we get this pig and we're over the top of her, and I'm fairly high. It's higher than the ceiling. I mean, I'm up there. And I'm like, all right. And my buddy's flying. We're pushing over this pig, and he's looking. And right as I think I'm good, as soon as I leave that bird, my feet leave those skids. I think they're called skids. That pig goes whoop. It just turns mid-air. I just whoop and throw the spear and bury it right behind the front shoulder.
Dude, you were made for you need to go fight at marathon.
No, I don't. No, these days are long gone. And the pig runs off, and they got it all on video, and it piled up not too long after that. It was wild. So that's a sweet spear. Yeah,
a
but
great
that's why
story.
I'm saying be careful because dudes will, and then they grab like this and they'll
Yeah,
they
some
run
people
their fingers down. I don't know why, but
we've all been there.
that's the story of the spear. But
You don't
yeah.
make that mistake twice.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to you, dude. I got some questions for you. This is actually from a buddy. You can throw that on the floor wherever. That I had to play twice with this guy actually. Kyle Hills. He's actually picking up major tomorrow. He started as enlisted. Him and I were troops
And he's
together.
becoming a major?
And he's been in this whole entire time.
Wow.
Yeah, when he joined in 2004. We all did 2 deployments together. He stayed in. He went
That's
the officer
nuts.
route. Yeah, so he pins on tomorrow, actually, major.
That's
So
incredible.
It's pretty cool. His question is, how large of a factor is the influence and contribution to the lobbyists when considering a topic to vote on?
That's completely dependent on the congressman. So I will
Okay.
talk about for myself, not a factor whatsoever. I would never even think about it. But for a lot of people who struggle with raising money, it's everything.
Really?
I mean, it is almost everything, unless it is like, every congressman has, their 1 or 2 issues that like they're known for, and so unless it's involving one of those, they will just do whatever makes the most political expedient sense.
Really?
And so it's like, oh well, we all have to vote against this, and then sometimes it comes down to where it's like, Democrats will come over and be like, hey, we really need to pass this bill, but we need, 5 of our people won't vote for it, so we need 5 of yours to get it passed. And so we'd be like, okay, who's in the safest seats? Who could like get away with doing this? And then, everyone votes against it, it's such a uniparty situation.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of guys will have their time in the chamber. It's like, oh, I got to vote with a Democrat this time. I'm going to get a little hate for it, but I'll be fine. And then, a bunch of lobbyists will be like, well, we'll make sure that you make up enough money to win those votes
shit.
back. And it's crazy.
It's all money, man.
A lot of it's money. A lot of it's money. And then if they can't get you with the carrot, they'll come with you with the stick. So false allegations, maybe they'll send. I always tell new congressmen or new people coming into that area, it's like, just remember, if you're in some random small town in Missouri, and I'm sure there's a lot of beautiful women in small towns in Missouri, but you see like a top level world famous model walk in and she just looks
Beelines
at
at you.
and thinks you're the funniest, most amazing guy in the world, and or she's with her friend, she's like, we should all go back to the hotel. I'm like, brother, I promise you're not that funny, you're not that good looking, and she meant to meet you that night, and it's going to turn out really bad.
And that shit happens, huh?
Oh yeah.
Are you? Do you live? Maybe not so much you, but you. Do you live in a constant state of, I don't want to say fear, but paranoia? Like, do you, especially in those stages when elections are going on, you're new to it. I mean, your head has to be on a swivel.
Yeah, and it is such second nature to a lot of people in that world that like we don't really think about it. Where it does become difficult is if I'm with somebody who has a hard time putting on a face or like, not saying their mind, or it's not that you're lying, but like omitting information or something because like you just can't say it at that time because there's certain people around or whatever.
Okay.
Or having to act like you like somebody. So I have a few people in my life who have a hard time with any amount of, not that it's dishonesty, but just having to play the game, at some level. And so it gets exhausting, especially for them, but it gets difficult to have to remind them, hey, you can't say that in front of these people. Or like, hey, you can't act like you like this person because this person hates this person. Or, hey, you have to do this for this crowd. Or, hey, you need to do this. And then they'll just be like, that's not me. Like, I don't believe that. And I'm just like, it's like, okay, well, that's sorry.
Yeah.
It's kind of the job you got to do right now. Like, I was like, or you'll be sitting there, you're having just a good night. Everybody's having a lot of fun. But hey, guys, everyone, like, lock in. Stop having fun. Why? It's like, because that person over there works for this news company. And they'll be like, how do you know that?
they're just
They
watching.
can't even hear us. I'm like, I promise they can. Like, I promise they can.
Because they might, but the person that works for them sitting next to you.
Exactly. And that's just like, these people are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to do this job.
To find anything
Yeah, and so
out.
that's where it gets difficult is if people that don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not that I enjoy it, but just people that have a difficult time with it.
Here's a kind of a personal question. As, a devoted Christian you are. Oh, please, dude. You want me to go get a break? I can get Okay.
No, we're good.
That works. As like a devoted Christian to, being who you are in your background, do you find yourself in any moral dilemmas, like having to lie, or is it all for the greater good in a way? Like
I don't lie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
A lot of people do, but just that's just being. Sometimes you gotta be. The difficult part
Is it hard not lying?
Yeah, that's it. That's where it gets difficult. Is you have to figure out tactically how to get away with something without sinning. And so it's like, geez, if I could just lie, it'd make it so much easier. But that's the price you got to pay. No one ever said being a Christian's easy.
No, for sure.
Can we take a second?
Fuck, I'll tell you.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Moist, huh? I know that word drives some people nuts, but
It's moist, brother. That's amazing.
do you want like a?
You gotta
do you
get a
want like
bite
a
of this,
slice?
man.
Text mom to bring
No,
up a.
no.
Oh, dude, you got to get a slice. Like, you got to get the guts of that thing. That's where the Nutella is.
Oh my God.
Sure, you want us? We can cut it up for you real quick. Text mom to bring up.
This is so good. It's okay. I don't need it. That's fine.
you sure?
This is just really good.
We were gonna start a podcast called Breaking Bread, where we just Brett and I just every night break a new loaf.
That's a great idea.
And just have people on.
And then you can make a highlight reel of each first break. Oh,
You're the first person to just cut into it on an episode. I usually just send them home. Yeah, I support it fully.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
Have you tried this stuff?
Yeah.
My God.
That's why I'm on a diet. Our house is full. We call it getting sourdough'd out.
Sourdough out?
Because
Are you sourdough out?
not right now. We're good. There's times where we have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we make a pizza loaf. We call it the Bigiorno. So when you get home, let me know when you're going to be home for a few days. How many damn knives do you have on you? Let me know when you're going to be home for a few days, and we'll send you a Bigiorno.
Send me a Bigiorno?
Pepperoni, mozzarella with herbs, like pizza herbs. Bro, you warm it up. It's a whole meal, and then you dip it in mozzarella sauce, like a marinara sauce. Fire. It fucks. Let me just say that.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. Dude,
God, send one.
we have a white chocolate. I'll send this to your chick. She'll forget everything. She'll forget about your tattoo.
Brother, it's gotten so much worse during this podcast. It's gotten so much worse.
Let it ride. Let it ride. We'll send her a white chocolate raspberry. Cut it up. Make French toast with it for breakfast. Slice some strawberries on it. But that one right there, dude, you slice that, put it in a cast iron so it gets crispy and it melts the chocolate and everything there. Peanut butter, sliced banana, honey on it. Pre-workout, Gym workout right there.
That sounds incredible.
It is. Dude, I'm a fat kid.
Dude, we should make that here, before we leave. Do you have a banana?
When are you leaving? What day are you?
Are you talking about using this bread?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Putting peanut butter on it?
You want some?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's just say yes. Is Mom here? This is the wildest. This is a wild chaos. So I heard a story about you.
Oh, dear God.
It's actually, I want to verify if it's true or not. January 6th story. Had a guy reach out that I know. He lives here. He's a local guy. National Guard. They had him living in the garage, sleeping in the garages there. And they said that nobody gave an absolute fuck about the National Guard sleeping in the garage. And this congressman ordered him a bunch of pizzas, and it was you. Is that a real story?
Yeah. So, because imagine, most of these National Guard guys are, young men. And, they had come in after January 6th, and a lot of them were sleeping all throughout the Capitol at night, and, just because there's nowhere for them to be. But, sleeping marble floors, there's couches all over the place. Mm-hmm. Everyone's just kind of chilling. And then I remember one day I see so many different states' National Guards just lined up in formation. Because imagine, what does a 19-year-old National Guardsman want to do more than get in full dress uniform and go stand in formation and listen to 6 different congressmen come give a speech? So then they take a picture with you. Be like, I was with my... And so anyway, I remember they asked if I wanted to speak to the North Carolina National Guard. I was like, absolutely not. We're not going to make these guys go stand in attention to hear of some random politician. It doesn't sound fun at all. And so anyways, all these guys get all these pictures with them. Everything's great. Then the very next night, they said, okay, no National Guardsmen are allowed to sleep in the Capitol anymore. You all have to be remanded to a parking garage. And, there's a ton of them. And all forced to sleep underground, like six levels of parking garage, different levels, with one bathroom.
Really?
And I hear about that. So I'm at dinner, it's just we're at like a nice restaurant. We got a couple of our couple advisors there, and I'm with my chief of staff. And I get a call from my buddy. Just a big shout out to my buddy Benny Johnson. Get a call from Benny Johnson. He said, Madison, I just heard from one of my friends that his brother is in the National Guard, and they just forced them all to go into sleep in the parking garages. And I was like, what? No, first of all, it's freezing outside.
Yeah, and it's even
there's
colder
one
underground.
bathroom, and then it's just fumey, and it's just bad,
Yeah.
and it's just awful. And so I hear that, and we're at this nice restaurant, and I look at my buddy Blake, and I was like, pay for the dinner. He's like, okay, so I go outside, and we call every Papa John's in town that we can find. And I say, make as many pizzas as you can for like the next hour. And they're like, why? We told them why they were doing it. And I got to give a huge shout out to all these Papa John owners, franchisee guys, because they started going to work. So we made hundreds of pizzas.
Really?
Took a pickup truck. We filled the pickup truck with all the pizzas. Then we drove to this parking garage where they were at. A bunch of National Guards guys outside. Obviously, someone's doing watch. And they're like, hey, sir, you got to stop. And I'm just in normal clothes. Not like in a suit or anything. And he was like, yeah, you can't come in. I was like, oh, we're trying to drop pizzas off for the boys. And like, I'm sorry if you don't have like the right stuff. And some officer comes over trying to talk our way through. And I was like, okay, like I hate being a dick, but I definitely outrank all of you.
I'm a fucking congressman.
I was like, get out of my way. And the guy was like, you got to have permission and blah, blah. And I was like, I was like, son. I was like, this guy's like 10 years older than me. I was like, son, if you don't open that gate, I was like, I'm going to get my wheelchair and get out of this car, and I will put my member pin on, and we will call whoever's in command of you. And he was like, okay. And so we go in, and then we drive in, and, there's no vehicles in it because obviously there's like hundreds and hundreds of National Guards.
Are they just sleeping on the floor? Or do they have cots?
No, sleeping on the floor.
Sleeping bags or just right on the
I don't remember. I got pictures of it, but I don't remember any sleeping bags or anything.
No shit.
Yeah, it was fucked up. And so anyway, so I hop out and no one's paying attention, and so I just kind of like I just yell. I was like, "Hey, I heard they kicked all your asses out of the Capitol." I was like, "We brought you some pizzas." And man, I've never had 2,000 friends so fast in my life because they were there for months after January 6th, and so it was awesome because they were being really strict to everybody, but now they all liked me, and I was like, if anybody wants to come sleep in my office, you're more than welcome.
Really?
And so yeah,
Good
so
for
we
you,
had a really
man.
good time. Then we would make different chili nights and have everybody come by, and so it was big. It was a lot of fun. But.
See, I feel like it's the little things like that, for you, especially being a younger guy, and you have all these career politicians that are sitting there watching and don't give a shit. And,
yeah.
I mean, that's what separates the Cranes, these guys that are actually making a difference, trying to make a difference, because it shows like, okay, hey, I truly care. You didn't have to do that.
Right.
I don't know if it went political or was on the news, but I heard that from a buddy of mine. Was like, man, this guy, this is what he did for us.
Dude.
And,
yeah,
and
that
so
was
it
a
pretty
fun
cool.
night.
I wanted to verify and make sure that was a cool story.
Yeah, it was my most fun thing we probably ever did was going to 8th and I.
Really?
The Marine barracks up there.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandfather used to be on the silent drills team there, and so like, his name's like on a wall somewhere. So anyways, so I'd gone to see it, and then the comment on the Marines like, oh hey, you and your woman should come here, and like we'll honor you guys that night. So we had to have this like cool seat, and they just did like the whole show they always do with the silent drill team, and then I got to do the blood stripe ceremony for a bunch of guys getting E4.
Did you?
Yeah, and so that was really fun.
That's tradition, man.
Dude, that was awesome.
How did you pin them?
I just handed him to him and handed him the thing.
Okay.
I'm like I'm not a Marine. I'm letting Marines do the pinning. That's their own thing.
It's cool you got to experience that because people always ask like, what's the difference between the Army and the Marine Corps? And my biggest thing between the Army and the Marine Corps is our customs and courtesies and traditions.
Well,
that's weird.
People are formerly in the Army. A Marine's a Marine forever. I mean, I've never met a Marine who's not a Marine. Like,
yep.
I'm like, yeah, dude, I can tell you're a Marine.
The years of traditions of what goes on, I'm sure it's very filtered down being up at the flagpole and you got all the brass around, but like in a grunt unit, in a field unit, did you get your blood stripes? Like we couldn't walk for a week. I mean, because anybody listening who doesn't know is when you pin on E4 or corporal, you get your red stripes down your legs on your blue trousers.
For Montezuma, right? Because all the E4s died
and all the bloodshed. So, and the tradition that's carried on to this day is obviously when you get pinned, you get your chevron shoved into your collar. I'm sure they don't do this anymore. I would love to know if they still did. So you get those pounded in, and then every corporal and sergeant come out, they pull them out of you. So they pull your collar back out. They slam them back into you, and then they hold you on their side, and they drive their knee straight into your thigh as hard as they can.
Dead leg.
And dude, if you have 10, 15 NCOs in your platoon, every one of them are taking their shot. And I know a lot of people are like, I would never. That was just the Corps we were in. Like,
Oh, yeah, dude, that's the
you didn't
best.
say you were never. Like, you didn't. It wasn't an option.
Yeah.
And so that was getting your blood stripes, and it was a pretty cool thing because you're considered an NCO at that point, even though you don't have shit for say, and your opinion doesn't mean a damn thing, but you got blood stripes now, and it just looks that much better when you wear your dress blues. You got that red stripe down your
The
side.
Marines are so cool, man.
It's cool.
Marines
It's cool
are
that
so
you got to experience like a little bit of tradition like that.
It was cool to see, man. Those are some awesome guys.
As far as what's the worst part of dealing with Congress and dealing with all of that when you're just
Oh, man, just
into
be
it?
like being on a date with your wife, and then just somebody come up and be like, "You're a fucking Nazi," blah, 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 and just trying to like
really?
ruin dinner or whatever, or just like there's a planned protest. Someone knew you're going to dinner, some nice restaurant, you're celebrating something like for your wife, has nothing to do with you, and then something
Really?
happens where you get all the attention. And you're like, "I want to be invisible. I'm literally just here to support her," and that sucks.
Yeah.
Or just anybody that's in your
Does
life.
that take a toll on your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Some women are really like some spouses, men and women, are just like really well made for that world,
Yep.
and they are so on point with your mission
Yeah.
that they're like, it's like they're both a congressman. Like it's like that couple is a congressman.
They're powerhouse for it.
Yeah, and they are freaking. They love it, and they're like, oh, this is all for it. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people who are just like, oh my gosh, you have to do this. Somebody else can do this. It's like nope, no one else can do it.
No, you're the
Yeah,
face.
and so it just depends who you're with.
So January 6th, where you were on the floor.
Yeah, I
mean,
was getting prepared. I actually spoke at the rally.
Yep.
So I was the only congressman to speak. So I spoke and then physically rolled all the way back up Pennsylvania. Which I'll tell you, rolling down to get there, because we were like, we had votes coming up to for what was going on January 6th, and we're like, dude, okay, we only have like 20 minutes. And I was like, I got to get down and speak. But all the roads were so shut down. We're like, oh, dude, there's no vehicle that's going to get us there in time. And I was like, fuck it, we're walking. And so we physically just rolled down. But there's like the roads are filled, but it's like the sidewalks are just all filled. But the main Pennsylvania Avenue was completely open because it was shut down. And so, anyways, I just looked at this one Capitol Police officer. Was like, open that gate. He was, oh, sir, I can't. I was like, do it. And he did. So me and two of my buddies just like, at probably 10 miles an hour pace.
Yeah.
Just went down this thing. And so for like 20 minutes of going down there, it was just like applauses on both sides. People were like, yeah. So that was really cool. But then gave a speech, then went back.
And
then
you had to go
I was
all the way
about
back up that grade.
Yeah, that was fun. But then I was about to lead the debate for contesting Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I saw all the Capitol Police guys get really straight backed. And you can notice when someone's like,
for sure.
everything changes. And I was like, what's going on there? And then I saw like a bunch of radio comms going on. I was like, that's interesting. And then, anyways, then we were like, then I heard over somebody's radio that somebody had made it into Statuary Hall. So in my mind, there was some tall, lanky, fast kid who had juked somebody out and just ran into Statuary Hall. But then next thing, then we started hearing all the doors are being banged on. I was like, that's weird. And then, but I will say, on that day, front 100, 150 guys, definitely not MAGA people. Like, though, I don't know. I don't know who they were. I don't know if they were just.
You don't think there were 3-letter agency guys in that crowd?
Oh, there were 78 of them.
Yeah.
There were 78. Yeah, 78.
This has been proven.
Yeah, it's very proven.
So what happened to all like the emails and the messages? I mean, how did all that get deleted?
Oh, dude, that's that.
What's your take on that?
Well, we're starting to get into a world of espionage and trickery.
It gets muddy at that point.
It gets muddy at that point.
I get you.
Who did what?
I get you.
What do they allow?
But I mean, it's obviously known, and a lot of people still deny it, that there weren't guys placed in that crowd to.
Yeah, I mean, like there were 78 human contacts like that work for the FBI in there. So
That's wild that our government's doing that type of shit.
yeah, and like the real like protagonists or like antagonists in the crowd, there were maybe 150 of them. So half of them were FBI. So,
because I mean, there's so many videos of people like, no, like scream, like leave it, don't do it.
But you got to think, man. Like, first of all, the front doors to the Capitol building are missile proof. They're designed to take shoot an RPG at it. You're not opening the door, and they're completely magnetized. All you have to do to secure that building is shut the door.
Push a button.
If the door is shut, everything's fine. And then there's a CERT team right down the hallway, like from the front door. And then you see a guy run in. He looks up at the camera and then points the door. and then tries to open it and looks at the camera and points at the door, and then you hear all the mag locks go, and then he opens the door, and then everyone just files in. And if you see people just walking in, you see Capitol Police escorting people around, you would think everything's
See
fine.
my high five and dabbing it up.
It's nuts. So
That was a wild time. Did you ever like fear for your life?
never, not even close, not even close. No,
No shit.
not. It wasn't. Yeah, not in the slightest. It just wasn't wasn't one of those situations.
What do you think about like the FBI and everything gonna get a makeover? You think
I think I think that is the most necessary thing that can happen. I think Tulsi Gabbard's the most important nomination that Trump's made.
Really?
Yeah, for the cabinet. Just reforming our intel community is the most important thing.
It is way past beyond needed. I mean, they've had free reign to run rampant through this country
and just lie and like manipulate and they're cruel, they're evil. It's wrong. So, yeah, brother. Well, man, any of the last big questions? Let's start.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up. I got one last question for you. We'll see how you don't have to answer this one, but this is a question from the veteran community.
Oh dear.
What's it like working with a spineless coward like Dan Crenshaw that turns his back on his community?
Oh! Dan and I don't see eye to eye, which is funny because he only has
Shocker.
one eye. Yeah, but I can't stand it. I will say, so there's a few congressmen. There's one guy who's got no legs. Dan, he's missing an eye, and I'm in a wheelchair. There's a couple other guys, and so anyways, we'll sometimes make other congressmen feel so bad if they'll like bring up something about a disability, like we're disabled, and then also they're like, whoa, what? And so Dan and I politically don't see eye to eye often, but we have a very good working relationship, like as friends. Like he makes some damn good merchandise. I'll give him that. And so like he made a bunch of Christmas sweaters one time. And I was thinking about making Christmas sweaters, and so I ordered a Christmas sweater from his thing, and gives him money to his campaign. But anyway, so I got that Christmas sweater at my house. And then, anyways, I was going to the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and my buddy who had like set up all the tickets, his wife was like, "Oh, we should all wear Christmas sweaters." And I was like, I'm in Florida, and I was like, I don't have any sweaters here. Yeah. And then I start looking for a Christmas sweater, and I find a fucking Dan Crenshaw Christmas sweater, and so that's what I wore to the thing. So I called Dan. I was like, "Hey, you're gonna laugh really hard at this. I'm wearing your sweater tonight," and I was like, "I just got it for research."
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's a bummer. It's kind of a bummer to see, like, especially being a vet in the SEAL in that community, like some of the decisions. I don't understand some of the decisions. When I threw it out there, I had a lot of people like ask about Dan because he's always under some sort of fire.
Yeah,
making some stupid ass decision that doesn't line with everything. But yeah, you didn't even have to get into that. I just thought it'd be hilarious to get your opinion on.
Yeah, man.
I get it.
Yeah, we've had some pretty massive disagreements in the past.
I feel a lot of people have with him.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I don't know if you want to get into what's next for you. We wrap it up here, but I appreciate.
Well, brother, it's been an honor, man.
Yeah, dude,
I've loved it.
Thanks for taking the time. I know we got a party tonight to get you ready for and
It's
get
gonna
you
be
back.
a good time.
Yeah, and so,
Yes,
but we'll see you later, and we'll get you hell out of here. We'll get you some bread warmed up.
We'll be back on again. We'll do this.
Dude, we ain't going anywhere. Anytime you roll through town, man, I'd like to catch up and see where you're at.
All right, man.
How everything's going in life.
Pumped about it, brother. Thanks, dude.
Thanks.
It's been an
Congratulations,
honor.
man.
Thanks.
On everything. Congrats. It's
Thank
awesome to see and get to know you.
It's been fun. I love it.
Dude.